descriptive yan, na yun yung isang proseso maaaring dadaanan or dinadaanan ng isang trans person. But yung identification, that's his or her right at the very start. Kailangan natin kilalanin. Iyon ko lang na lumabas ng sandali si Sen Aimee para mag-oath taking kasi sa Commission on Appointments, pero I believe that she will be returning, and I remember pagkatapos nung privilege speech ko tungkol kay Ms. Gretchen earlier this week, ay si Sen Aimee yung isa nag-manifest ng support para sa pagpasa ng ating SOGI Equality Bill. Acknowledge ko rin po yung pagdalo ng ating mga additional resource persons, si Percival Sendanya ng Babaylanes Inc., si Marie Rose Ramos ng Galang Philippines Incorporated, si Bonnie Galang, isang victim survivor ng sexual discrimination, at si Dr. William Momica, Clinical Associate, and we'll be talking with him also during this hearing. So, kung wala na tayo, Senator, na mga dagdag na tanong sa puntong ito sa ating unang mga resource persons, subukan kong i-summarize lang. So, subukan kong i-summarize yung discussion so far by using the gender-bread person. Gender-bread person. So, sex, vis-a-vis gender identity, vis-a-vis sexual orientation, at may sex characteristics pa tayo. So, for example, tama po ba ito, Ms. James at Ms. Naomi? Tama po bang sabihin ko as a gender-bread person na ako si Risa Ontiveros, isang cisgender, heterosexual woman? Yan, pinag-usapan natin kanina, Senator Roy. Cisgender, heterosexual. My sexual orientation is heterosexual na. My gender identity is cisgender woman. My gender expression is feminine. So, tama po ba yung paggamit ko ng ganitong mga realidad natin ang pinag-uusapan natin?
Yes, yes, Madam Chair. And you are not under pressure to reveal your anatomical sex. Because it's not polite to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Naomi. At the same time, with this very rich or radical, as Ms. Naomi said, resource of the gender-bent person, then I invite anyone in the room who would like, in our own selves, to understand better itong mga pinag-uusapan natin mga realidad sa loob ng SOGI Equality Bill in relation to each of our own selves. So, malinaw na, if a cisgender male dresses, ito, okay, related sa burning issues of the day. If a cisgender male dresses as a woman to access a female bathroom, una, hindi po siya trans woman. Pangalawa, if he violates or harasses anyone inside the bathroom, meron na po tayo mga batas tungkol dyan. At kasi dapat naman talagang ligtas at para sa lahat ang ating mga bathroom. And gusto ko din lang linawin ang gender identity ng mga gay men ay male. Hindi rin sila makaka-access ng female bathroom dahil nga sila ay male. On the other hand, trans women are women. They should be allowed to enter female bathrooms in peace. Our bathrooms should be safe and gender inclusive.
Madam Chair, may I add to that?
Yes, please.
Yes. We would just like to put on record that there are no proven cases, meaning there is no evidence, that transgender women who share facilities with non-trans women commit any form of sexual violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment against other women. If there was an article that circulated recently in relation to that, it's not from the Philippines. It's actually written by an anti-LGBT person who who wants to block any form of legal protections for LGBTIQ people in the US. But we've seen that shared by members of the government on their Twitter and their Facebook, and we were alarmed because we felt that it was irresponsible of them to do that, because in the Philippines and elsewhere, there is no evidence to prove that trans women will commit sexual violence in female toilets. In fact, Madam Chair, in research and studies conducted on violence against women, most women who report cases of violence report the perpetrators as someone that they know. Either it's a member of their family, there are people they're in relationships with, or people in their immediate circle. stranger to stranger violence is very rare all over the world. And all reports about violence against women and children are committed by perpetrators who the victims intimately know.
Senator Roy.
Madam Chair, I just would like to react. Sinabi natin resource person. Bago sa lahat, I would like to manifest na ako'y I'm with your side. O nga, advocating kung pwede. Magpakasal kayo, pareho lalaki, pareho babae, okay sa akin. Walang problema. Magsama kayo, magpakasal, walang problema natin. Pero ito lang, mayroon lang reaction dito with regards to the using of toilet. Yung toilet assigned for female, na i-allow natin yung transgender na gumamit. Totoo yung sinabi ni Miss Montanos na wala pang reported na transgender harassing straight female inside the bathroom. Ang akin lang, you cannot detach me from my wild imagination being a retired police officer. Pag-ialaw kasi natin yan, kasi in traffic alone, hindi naman kailangan you just consider one portion of the society, kundi lahat i-consider mo yung mga maapektuhan ng mga grupo din, like yung totoong babae. Kasi dito may concern sila, just in case. Gusto ko lang rin share sa inyo. Sabi ko, what if isang lalaking manyak magsuot ng pambabae, kasi mag-pretend to be a bakla, papasok doon sa CR. Hindi siya mangharas. Sigurado po, kung maraming tao doon, upakan siya ng mga babae doon. Mag-exploit lang, manilit, whatever, ano gawin niya doon. Can we, sisters and daughters safe in those bathroom? Kasi may nag-raise din na ganong issue, ha? Kabasya ko dito, tinanong ko mismo yung anak ko, ikaw, payag ka ba? Sabi na, medyo alangarin ako sana kung may yung tao magbabantay doon sa loob ng siya na kung may gagawin ng kalupuhan yung nagpre-pretend, mapuli ka agad, pero hindi natin kasi alam. So yun lang, yun consider natin ha. This is not an attack to your group, kundi ito lamang na in-entertain ko lang yung pahayag rin ng ibang hindi membro ng inyong community, yung totoong babae. Matapos na baka may mga ganun insidente ba? Yun lang naman. Paano natin yan siya ma-appease yung apprehension ng mga straight na babae na ayaw. Pati yung lalaki. Kasi ako rin, may anak rin ako ng babae. May mangyari sa anak ko yan sa loob ng sigar. Diba? Busuhan, pag natulog yung anak ko, kinukumutan ko yan palagi. Tapos, abusuhin lang na isang manyak. Diba? Ganun lang sa akin. Please, kung naintindihan mo yung aking side.
Salamat, Senator Roy. Gusto ko rin lang i-affirm at this point na totoong babae ang mga trans women. So, si Ms. Naomi, si Ms. Gretchen. Pero, please, I invite you to respond dun sa concerns ni Senator Roy. Opo.
Well, if that assignment na sasabi mo totoong babae, baka offensive sa inyo yung biologically female, yun lang sa akin. Biologically female, yun ang medyo nag-react sa mga ganun. Thank you.
Salamat. Ms. Naomi, in responding, maybe you'd also like to, I see we have a few more slides na baka in responding to the questions of Senator Roy, you might want to return to some of them. And then let's also hear after Ms. Naomi from Ms. Gretchen.
Sir, we understand the concern, but as Senator Antiveros already mentioned, there are laws to prosecute acts of sexual violence anywhere. So, as we have already mentioned as well, sexual violence can happen anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be in the toilets alone. Sexual violence can happen in your own home, and there are laws to prosecute that. But we see that there is a disconnect of using that as a strong argument against the passage of the Social Equality Bill, because sexual violence can be addressed by existing laws, and it doesn't mean that because there's sexual violence, we don't have to pass the SOGI Equality Bill and protect members of the LGBTIQ from discrimination and violence po.
Ms. Gretchen?
Good morning po sa lahat. Ako po yung napalat pagkat nakapanayan ko po ang grupo ng mga kababaihan, ang sinasabi po ng mga nakakarami ng mga tunay na kababaihan tungkol sa opinion po nila sa sinusulong po natin pagkakapantay-pantay lalo na sa karapatan. At over the weekend po ako talaga po ay umiyak sa aking lola. Dahil pakiramdam ko, baka nga po sa sinusulong ko na to, may mga karapatan po akong natatapakan katulad ng lamang po ng mga biological na babae or assigned woman at birth. At kinikilala nila na yun ang tunay nilang pagkakakilanlan. Iniisip ko kung tama po ba na isulong siya. So, nung dumating po yung Lunes na may iba't ibang mga grupo ng kababaihan na sumuporta sa akin at naiintindihan nila at nag-express po sila na normal para sa kanila at hindi nakakababa ng kanilang pagkatao at hindi issue sa kanilang seguridad ang paggamit ng palikuran na kasama ang mga katulad naming trans woman. Doon po naging panatag ng aking kalooban. Una po sa lahat, ang krimen po ng pambabastos, panghaharas, ay maaaring mangyari hindi lamang po sa palikuran. At kung ang atin pong inaalala ay ang kasiguruhan na walang mangyayaring harassment, walang mangyayaring pang-abuso sa karapatan ng kababaihan sa loob ng mga palikuran, I think SOGI Equality Bill pushes more security to different gender. Bakit po? Pagkat po ang mga establishmento, mas magiging masuri sila at mapagbantay sa karapatan ng bawat isa. Kaya po tinatawag natin SOGI Equality. Imbes na po papabayaan nila ang kanilang mga palikuran na nakatiwangwang lamang at walang mga supervisor or walang mga sanitary personnel, mas magiging maingat po sila pagkat alam po nila na ang palikuran ay magiging bukas na sa lahat po ng mga pagkakakilanlan. Kaya po, naiisip ko po na on the other side, it might cause alarm to people. Na especially yung mga taong hindi po bastong nagkaroon ng kaalaman sa aming pong kalagayan. But at the same time, maaari rin pong mapaigting nito ang seguridad ng ating mga kababaihan o ng lahat ng mga kasarian pagkat ang mata ng publiko ay nasa ganitong usapin at ang ating pong pinaganapan ay pagkapantay-pantay. At ang definisyon ko po ng pagkakapantay-pantay ay ang paggalang sa karapatan hindi lamang po namin LGBTQ+ community members, kundi maging ng mga sinasabi natin tunay na kababaihan at tunay na kalakihan. Pagkat sila po mismo ay kumikilala na kami po ay tunay na mga babae. Salamat po.
Salamat, Ms. Gretchen. Ms. Naomi, would you like to walk us through, even if briefly, the few remaining slides na nakita mo na dyan ba? Or anything you want to point out from it? Hindi na. Alright, thank you, Ms. Naomi and Ms. James. So, muli, pag-summarize lang ulit tungkol dun sa gender bread, yung napaka-instructive na illustration dyan. So, sa utak natin, yung gender identity, sa puso natin, yung sexual orientation, sa ari natin, yung sex characteristics, and then yung pagpapahayag natin ng ating pagkasarili naman yung gender expression natin. So, moving on po sa ating mga cases of discrimination na isasalaysay sa atin, magpapatunay dito sa ating binabakan natin diskriminasyon, bakit natin pinagalaman ng equality. So, now that we've learned our SOGI SC 101, we've also learned that these distinctions are normal, they're natural. In an ideal world, syempre, it's no big deal who we are, who we love, how we look, how we feel. Wala dapat sana itong bearing when it comes to our rights. But with stigma and discrimination, SOGI SC becomes a ground for inequalities, harassment, and violence. And we recognize that today we have victims, survivors of discrimination who are going to speak to us about their experiences. We'd like to recognize Deg Uban and Roy Galvo. Before I ask them to speak, gusto ko lang i-share sa lahat na Roy, she accessed our bathroom here at the Senate this morning, and a report was made to our Office of Security. Sorry, Roy, for this incident. I'm so embarrassed. This has happened pong HIV/AIDS bill hearing dito sa Senado. So on behalf po ng aming komite on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, hindi po ako nag-comment sa iyo. And then maybe you like to speak and then si Ted.
Good morning, Senator Risa. Good morning, Senator Bato. Good morning, everyone. This incident of bathroom discrimination happens each and every time I walk through a lavatory. I'm used to it. It doesn't matter to me anymore. There are other more important things that the Senate has to handle other than my bathroom. But let me share later to you my discrimination.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Ted?
Madam Chair, dear Senators and the audience, good morning. I'm here to speak about the experience that I recently had. Before I start, I want to say that the story of discrimination goes beyond bathroom. It happens in the streets, it happens at home, at school, at the workplace. And this is the reason why I believe we cannot just streamline the label as Homo sapiens. Kailangan intindihin natin ang story ng bawat isa. At dahil kaya nangyayari itong discrimination ay hindi malalim ang pag-unawa natin. I experienced a discrimination during one of my job applications last year. And then during the interview, I was first asked to introduce myself. I wasn't yet done speaking about myself, and the interviewer intercepted and asked, "Are you married?" To which I responded, "No, I'm not." The next question was, "Are you gay?" That incident, it really made me nervous. It made, will this affect my chance of getting the job? So I didn't know what to say, but I really did. So I said, "Yes, I am." And then the discrimination continued. The interviewer further said, "How gay are you?" This time, it was really disappointing. Hindi ko na alam ang sasabihin ko. So I told the interviewer, "Sir, I believe that hindi natin pwedeng i-rate ang gayness." And makulit siya. So sabi niya, "Just pretend that it can be rated. So from 1 to 10, how gay are you?" So I don't understand what you're asking, sir, sabi ko din sa interviewer. I believe in SOGI, may iba tayong gender identity and expression. What exactly do you want to ask me? Then he asked me, sige, are you more masculine or are you more feminine? So medyo magulo na, ano nangyayari? Hindi ko na alam kung saan ba itong interview na to. So if that's the question, then I see my answer is, I see myself as a man, yun ang sabi ko. I think I'm more masculine than feminine, sabi ko. And then bumalik na naman siya sa tanong. So sabi niya, okay, so you rate, okay, you're more masculine. So now you rate your level of gayness. Binalik niya from 1 to 10. And that point, hindi na ako natuwa. So I said, I'm not liking this conversation anymore. I'm sorry, but I have to leave. Because I felt disrespected, I felt discriminated against. And the chance of getting the job was absolutely zero. So I stood up and then I left his office. And then, well, I didn't hear anything. Actually, I tried to file a case pero medyo walang, hindi pa nasundan. Nagkaroon lang ng internal hearing with the company which I attended. We were supposed to meet last February with my interviewer pero hindi pa rin natuloy. I think both parties are medyo preoccupied, so hanggang ngayon wala pa rin usad yung case. So that was my experience, Madam Chair. If I may add also, this is just a personal inclination. Kung okay lang sa atin to avoid using the term straight, I believe if yung sabi sing straight, may connotation siya na ito ang tuwid. Straight ruler, ito ay tuwid. So, paano ka ba hindi straight? Hindi ka ba tuwid? So, what's the opposite of straight? It's crooked, it's bent. So, just to be sensitive about this word, if you can use the terms that were discussed earlier, like heterosexual, etc. That's all, Madam Chair.
Yes, just to tell everyone, I did not do anything earlier. I just went to the bathroom to check if I'm still pretty because I have to face you and Senator. As I remember 2 weeks ago, I was at the second floor here at the Senate. I was even inside the female restroom with Senator Ivy, and there's no issue. You know, all I have to do is to check if I'm pretty. Because I have to face a lot of people, a lot of you guys, and I have to face the world alone, okay? So there's nothing wrong with me using the ladies' bathroom. Please don't
make it a huge issue, please. I just want to, be comfortable. That's it. No other issues for me. There are much more issues that the Senate needs to fix. But for me, sanay na ako eh. Tama na. Kung ayaw nyo, diwag. Provide unavailable bathroom. The disabled bathroom. It should be locked. Hindi naman ako magpa-party sa loob ng comfort room eh. Diba? As I have mentioned, I just want to make sure that I'm ready. That's it.
Sir, would you also like to tell the committee your story of discrimination?
Yeah, Senator Bato, Senator Risa. I was discriminated at Concentrix Philippines last 2016. This is November. Before I entered the company, I asked everyone, would it be okay if I would use the ladies' comfort room in case the disabled comfort room is not available? And the HR personnel told me, yes, there's no problem. And that's the only question I asked them after my interview. So I'm very, very sure that I can use it. However, on the last day of my training after 25 days, I'm so late and I need to go to the bathroom. It's traffic. The disabled comfort room was locked. So since the ladies' comfort room is just beside it, I don't have any choice. I really can take it, I have to use it. Then a few minutes later, everyone was called. Everyone's attention was called. In front of all the call center agents, I was discriminated. Sabi pa nga ng HR personnel na nag-discriminate sa akin, mag-CR ka kung anong gender mo nung ipinanganak ka. And that guy did not want me to speak anymore. Pinatatahimik niya ako after niya ako ipahiya sa harap ng maraming tao. I went to Dole, walang nangyari. I went to NLRC, wala rin nangyari. Then after a few months, I wrote a letter to Chairman Chito Gaston of Commission on Human Rights. Sabi ko sa kanya, Chairman, nagsasawa na ako. I want to end up my life na. Nagkaroon na ako ng severe urinary tract infection. Parang hindi ko na kayang lumabas ng bahay namin. And every time someone invites me to go out, ang tanong ko agad, may Starbucks ba doon? Hindi porket social or masosyal ako. It's because Starbucks is the only chain na merong common comfort room. Doon walang diskriminasyon. Doon maayos pa nga ang CR, malinis, mabango eh. Diba? Kaya yun, sabi ko kay Chairman Chito, tapos na, pagod na po ako, walang nangyayari sa kaso ko. I want to end up my life. Super duper depressed na po ako niyan. I came to your office, if you could remember Senator Risa, I catch everyone's attention, walang pumansin sa akin. Only two media, now the PIO of Mayor Isko, si Julius Leonin, ang nakinig sa akin. And the New York Times, imagine, international news pa ang nakinig sa istorya ko. Yung mga news natin dito, wala din ha. After a few years, nangyari ulit kay Gretchen. Bumalik sa akin yung alaala ng trauma. Sabi ko sa sarili ko, ano ba yan? Nangyari na naman. Naalala ko yung lahat as in bumalik sa alaala ko yung pag-discriminate sa akin na walang nangyari. Sabi ko sana may mangyari na this time. I've been friends with a lot of politicians. I kept silent because of our stand. Naging tahimik ako kahit alam kong wala talagang tumutulong sa akin. Hindi ako nagtawag ng media or I did not cause anything. Humingi akong tulong. Binubulong ko lang po sa mga senators and public officials. Dead ma eh. So okay na ako. At least nasabi ko yung story ko. Pero this time, I just want all of you guys, from the senator, from the upper and to the lower house, to have the disabled bathroom available for everyone. Yun na lang naman eh, para matapos na. Now, I can say, if you go to hotels, they have 4 doors. Male, female, male or whatever, female or whatever. So, it's available already sa mga hotels. Sa mga public buildings, wala pa eh. Tapos, yun nga, yung nangyari kay Gretchen. Napakasakit ma-discriminate. It will cause you frustrations, magdadamdam ka, magkakaroon ka ng anxiety and depression, which no one knows. No one will even care kapag meron kang nararamdaman. I'm so blessed that our policemen understand Sochi. Sabi ko nga puti naman, mayroon pang nakakaintindi kahit paano. Pero the security guards, the other maintenance, even the HR personnel of Concentrics Philippines wasn't aware. I'm just not sure. And this happened in Quezon City. I even wrote a letter to the now mayor, before she's the vice mayor. Pinusulat ako ng secretary na in Tagalog. Sumulat ka ng salaysay. I brought her that letter to her office pagkatas ko gawin. And she's just a few blocks away, few chairs away from me. Hindi ko siya nakausap. Sabi ko siguro kasi walang media. That's why they don't care about my case. And that's what I said with some of the interviews that I went through. Baka kailangan ng media intervention para mapansin yung case ko. However, I don't care anymore. I just want to have equal rights. Tapos na ako sa trauma and pain. Sawa na ako, 3 taon na Kaya lang talagang walang nangyayari. And I want everyone to know, sino man po ang mabastos ng isang transgender sa CR, ako po ang hihingi ng tawad. Kasi wala naman talagang intensyon na mangyari masama yung tao Kung ako, sa sarili ko, siguro, nanggaling ako sa estado ng buhay na napakababa, wala lang papansin sa akin. Naging tahimik ako kasi marami po tayong masasagasaan. Nasa politika tayo, marami tayong pinangangalagaan pangalan, kaya mas pinili ko na lang kung hayaan na ang prosecutor's office ng Quezon City sa kaso ko, na hanggang ngayon ay wala pa rin nangyayari. 3 taon na. That's 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Walang nangyari. Waiting, pending, and hindi sumisipot yung kinoclaim ko. As a matter of fact, hindi pa ako makapag-file ng case na iba. Kasi kailangan daw muna kong tapusin yung case na naunang final ko. Sabi ko, hindi po ba ito mawawalan na ng saysay kasi ilang taon na And then wala. I kept on trying to ask everyone to help me, pero walang nangyayari. I believe this time and I hope matigil na yung discrimination. Wala naman kaming masamang intensyon. Wala rin kaming balak na gawing masama sa kapwa namin. We don't need special treatment. We don't ask for special treatment. We just want to be normal. We don't want to be labeled. We just want to be normal. I just want to be normal. I do things normal people do. In fact, para matapos ko yung depression na session ko, Quezon City provided me with a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists. Imagine that, umabot po ako sa ganung punto that I have to talk with psychiatrists and psychologists every 6 hours. Kasi there's a chance that I will commit suicide again. So far, yung napagdaanan ko, painful. Ang ginawa ko para malampasan ko yan, I kept on doing things na alam kong hindi rin naman papansinin. I kept on doing good to others. I help people in need. Siguro, si Lord na lang ang bahala sa akin. Since it's very hard to find a job being in a situation like this, wala na tananggap na call center sa akin because they know that I have a complaint. And I believe that they already know how powerful the voice of the LGBT is. They even call me, nandyan na si Roy, the fierce lady. They call me fierce because I stand alone. No one wanted to help me before Pero I don't care. I'm just Roy. I just want to be normal. And I hope you, Senator Bato, I hope you could help us. Just be equal. And it doesn't matter how you call us. Homo sapiens, I don't care. We're all human. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roy, and thank you, Deg. Gusto ko acknowledge yung presence ni Ms. Joy Villarreal, interpreter para kay Disney Avila ng Pinidef Frequent Corporate. At this point, we'll also hear from the LGBTIQ advocates who have documented cases like of Deg and of Ms. Roy, cases of discrimination. So, could we hear first from, would you please hear first from Percy Catania of Babaylanes?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning to the members of the committee. Magandang umaga po. Kami po ang Babaylanis Incorporated, isang NGO na tumutulong sa mga estudyanteng LGBTQ+, na mag-organisa para maprotektahan ang kanilang karapatan. Sa araw pong ito, gusto ko pong i-quote yung nag-viral na video online, yung may dialogue, sabi ni Madjo, kasi hindi ka muna papasok sa school. Pwede po ba natin ulitin ang sabay-sabay? Kasi hindi ka muna papasok sa school. Maraming po ang tulad ni Cassie na hindi pinapapasok sa school kasi LGBTQ+ sila. Kwento po ni Jay, mula sa Basa, sa Pampanga, isang grade 12 student, transgender man po si Jay. Ibig sabihin, pinanganak siya na babae ang assigned sex at birth, pero kinikilala ang sarili bilang lalaki. Grade 12 po siya, at sa grade 12 sabi niya, gusto kong magbihis naman, gusto ko o preferred ko na gender identity bilang lalaki. So siya ay nagbihis ng uniform na panglalaki. Araw-araw po pinapagalitan siya ng teacher, araw-araw hinihiya siya sa klase. At dumating sa punto na kinakailangan niyang kumuha ng requirements para sa kolehiyo mula sa principal ng kanilang eskwela. At doon pinagalitan si Jay ng principal at sinabi, Jay, bakit ka nakadamit pang lalaki? Sinabi ni Jay, transgender man po ako. At piniliwanag niya ano ang transgender man. Pagkatapos nun, sabi ng principal sa kanya, Jay, lumapit ka sa akin. Kakapain ko. Pag may nakapa ako, sige magpantalon ka. Pero pag wala akong nakapa dyan, magpalda ka bukas. Hindi po nakapag-college that year si Jay kasi the next day hindi na siya pumasok. Si Jay po ay tulad ng marami na kasi hindi ka muna papasok sa school na nakakaranas ng stigma and discrimination. Sa isang state college po sa Cebu City na natuturo sa mga guro, isa lang naman ito, meron silang dress code policy. At nito pong taon na ito at nakaraang taon, sinabihan ng mga transgender women students na marami sa eskwelahan na yon na hindi kayo makaka-enroll hanggang hindi kayo nagpa-proper uniform at nagpapagupit ng inyong mahabang buhok. Tulad ni Cassie, tulad ni Jay, yung mga college students na ito sa isang state college sa Cebu na natuturo sa mga teacher, hindi rin sila pwedeng pumasok sa school. Yung iba naman po nakapasok na sa school. In the case of PUP Senior High School, for the past 2 years, we've been struggling with their principal. Na every graduation, sinasabihan ng transgender women students na hindi kayo gagraduate. Hindi kayo masasama sa candidates for graduation as long as hindi kayo nagsusubscribe sa tamang haircut, which is 1/3. Naka-negotiate ang mga bata doon sa kanilang principal at sinabi na karapatan po namin graduate kasi nakapasa po kami. Ang nangyari, pinagraduate sila pero hindi inissuehan yung certificate of good moral character, which is a usual requirement for a lot of state colleges and universities. Again, kasi hindi ka man napapasok sa school. The Philippine Youth Development Plan states that youth development is defined as enabled, involved, patriotic youth realizing their aspirations. Realizing their aspirations, patupad maabot ang pangarap. Discrimination, stigma, in the case of these cases, is a deterrent to development. Madam Chair, members of the committee, today we would like to reiterate that discrimination is an issue, not just of human rights, but a development issue because it deters our young people from realizing their aspirations. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din, Percy. At gusto ko rin i-acknowledge yung pagdating ni Senator Coco Pimentel sa Cairo for joining us this morning. Now we will hear from Attorney Jazz Tamayo and LG Bernardo. You have the floor. Rainbow Rights Project Incorporated.
Good morning po sa inyo. Ako po ay si Jazz from Rainbow Rights. In 2014, Rainbow Rights Philippines released its research called Kwentong Bekot, Lived Experiences of Lesbians, Bisexual Women, and Transgender Women in the Philippines. It featured various accounts of discrimination and violence experienced by LGBT women in particular, in the hands of service providers, duty bearers, parents, and school personnel, etc. Such as, for example, a trans woman who was punched, bleeding in the hospital, she was laughed at by the medical staff and was left untreated. Another case, a trans woman, victim of gang rape, was asked by the police when she was reporting if what happened to her wasn't exactly what she wanted as a gay man, obviously misgendered. In the reporting itself, she was obviously re-victimized and ridiculed. Another one is a trans woman in a barangay hall seeking assistance in an unrelated case. Ended up being ogled by the barangay captain, after which the captain spread rumors that he was able to mash her breasts. In what would probably be one of the most angry cases I have ever encountered in my life, alongside rape cases, of course, and rape jokes too. Sorry, couldn't resist. In People versus Penania, an RTC case in Cagayan de Oro in 2016, a judge ruled against a complaint of child abuse, despite the finding of a psychologist that the child suffered trauma, and the negative effects, one of which was the fact that the child didn't want to go to school anymore. The case featured a child, grade 4 at the time, in a public elementary school, who was made to wear school curtains. Let me repeat, the school curtains, as a punishment for failing to abide by a uniform policy. This was done to the child no less than 6 times by the defendant principal. The judge later ruled that the child was too young to venture into a lifestyle of the gender identity that is different from the child's assigned sex at birth. Obviously, I'm inputting the correct terms because the judge actually described the child so wrong and so unfairly that I cannot bear repeat how this was done. Judge further ruled that the mother of the child is the one that erred in not guiding her child better, and that the principal simply did something that was within the ambit of her authority, in order to correct the child's deviating attitude. And as regards the finding of the psychologist, the judge claims that by observing the child in his courtroom, it didn't seem to him that the child had been psychologically affected at all, as if he himself is a psychologist. So this ruling is actually in the final document, and I can imagine the chilling effect it will have for other parents who would actually want to file cases like this, if they could lose this way and the judge just berating them about how they did not discipline their child. These stories, the oppression, the discrimination, even the alarming identities of those who discriminate, duty bearers, no less than law enforcement, all these, they keep happening. And yet after 19 years, the SOJA Equality Bill remains unpassed. To delay the SOJA Equality Bill, it is to say to a person who just happens to be different from you, that it is okay to lose your fundamental right to education because the school uniform policy is much more important than you. To delay the SOJA Equality Bill is to say that you are not to be helped or assisted because you deserve to be raped, abused, and ridiculed, because you are not like me and you are not like us. To keep delaying the bill is to say to a person, do not expect to be hired, regardless of how qualified you are, because your hair is simply not like how we wear ours. To keep delaying the bill is to say that this state, this government, and all its instrumentalities are only for cisgender, heterosexual persons like us and never you. Is this the message we really want to carry? The promise of equal protection clause in the Constitution is simply not enough to guarantee equality. We need laws that will specifically compel if it cannot make people understand what equality is. When the oppression doesn't happen to them, then maybe having a law that prohibits them from discriminating with its penalties will make them do it. I have never encountered anyone who looks forward to or relishes the idea of paying his or her taxes. But we do, they do, because the law says so. If people cannot find it in their hearts to treat others equally, then perhaps they would, if it would have some impact on them. Sometimes change doesn't happen organically. If it were, we probably didn't have to wait for 19 years. Sometimes it needs a push, particularly if the status quo means a reality of suffering, disenfranchisement, oppression, invisibility, and disregard of certain sectors. I think the case of Gretchen is a very good example because there was an ordinance in Quezon City when it happened. I think it started out as she was a suspect and later on she became the complainant when there was a realization that there was an ordinance and that support was on her side. The fight for the SOJA bill has been too long. All these cases, all this suffering, all this othering, they simply must stop. When you give us equal rights, there is no taking from you. There is no lessening of you. No one is any less a man or any less a woman when we respect diversity. I say even we become better human beings. SOJA Equality Bill means simply that, an acceptance that we are different but equal. In behalf of Labor Rights and together with the Laga Blog Network, we thank you for this opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Attorney Jazz. Will we be hearing from LJ? Okay, so thank you to Rainbow Rights Project. Ngayon naman po, from Metro Manila Pride, Nikki Castillo.
Magandang umaga po, Madam Chair, to the committee. The claim is often made that the Philippines embraces the equal treatment of people who openly identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex, or LGBTQI, katulad ng tutukan natin natutunan natin earlier. The importance of recognizing gender equality is embodied in national legislation. And the Philippines ranks high in studies comparing the gender gap and attitudes towards the LGBTQI community to other countries in the Asia-Pacific region. This supposedly progressive reputation has prompted detractors to dismiss the need for anti-discrimination laws. However, it is clear that discrimination is still prevalent in the Philippines, and there is much work that needs to be done. The state's negligence in gathering crucial information concerning LGBTQI issues has led to a lack of proof recognized by our legislators and the sector's continued exclusion from policymaking. This, despite the culture of bigotry and prejudice, normalized and encouraged through countless means, from the media to religious spaces and even to our own leaders, breeding hostile behavior steeped in sexism, anti-gay, misogynistic, and anti-trans sentiments. LGBTQI Filipinos are often the target of harassment and exclusion from establishments, schools, and workplaces, like we will hear from many of the advocates today. Many gender non-conforming individuals suffer from violence in the household and in many public spaces. Young LGBTQI Filipinos still suffer from psychological trauma brought about by practices, mostly religious in nature, that aim to forcibly alter their sexual orientation or gender identity to their detriment. Exhaustive studies show that plenty of Filipinos are at high risk for suicide ideation and behavior caused by the treatment they experience due to their sexual orientation. In a survey conducted by Rainbow Rights Philippines and Metro Manila Pride from 2017 to 2019, it shows that despite our claims to changing attitudes that are more friendly to LGBTQI people, children are still especially vulnerable to bullying and harassment in schools because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or sex characteristics. That abusive treatment is endemic in spaces that should be safe. That schooling is often marred by discrimination, curtails students' right to education. That same survey, which involved 400 respondents, mostly 13 to 24 years old, 62% of those who identify as part of the LGBTQI community experience discrimination on the basis of their SOGI SE. 51% experience this in public schools, 31% in the streets, 28% in private schools, 25% in their own neighborhoods, 19% in churches, 17% in their own households. The effects of experiencing hostility, humiliation, and abuse in public life are incalculable, and that plenty of this treatment is disproportionately experienced by the youth extends to a deep and lasting trauma that no person should ever go through. The recent highly publicized cases of trans women, including the public ridicule of Darna Evangelista, initiated by the security staff of the LRT-1 Carriedo station, the hostile treatment of Gretchen Custodio Diaz in the public restroom of Farmers Plaza, the war of attrition suffered by Hermie Montelde as a student and teacher in the University of the Philippines system. These reflect merely a few of the everyday indignities experienced by trans women in the Philippines that are often ignored. That these escalate to murder in the case of Jennifer Laude, Mary Joy Añonuevo, Natalia Gonzalez, and the many unreported cases of anti-trans violence in the country reveals a crisis that the state has an obligation to respond to swiftly and without compromises. We are at a turning point in the movement for human rights. That the support for the annual Pride March and the struggle it represents has grown exponentially throughout the years makes it clear that more Filipinos recognize the need to support efforts to combat discrimination. Despite this, efforts to enact national legislation penalizing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity has languished in Congress for over 2 decades. Metro Manila Pride strongly implores the state to fulfill its duty and protect the basic human rights of one of the most vulnerable sectors of the Philippines. To recognize the fundamental truth that LGBTQI rights are human rights. These rights, they address the issues of safety, education, health, and the rights of children. The fair inclusion and the protection of any individual from harm on the basis of your sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or sex characteristics is the humane and therefore the correct choice to make. The belief that Filipinos accept and treat the LGBTQI community fairly belies the truth of our current situation. Our hope is that the passage of the SOGI Equality Bill will be the start of a broad and lasting change in the cultural attitudes for the better, and that eventually our reputation as a progressive nation can be earned. On behalf of Metro Manila Pride and Lagablam Network as well, nagpapasalamat po kami sa inyo.
Maraming salamat din, Ms. Lee. The committee shares the hope that you expressed, and we hope that in this 18th Congress we can bring the whole Senate to meet that hope halfway with the concurrent. Salamat. Now we will hear from Marie Rose Ramos of Galang, Philippines.
Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat po at bigyan mo po kayo na spasyo para mag-share ng aming mga kwento. Ako po ay galing mula sa Galang, Philippines, isang NGO po na nagtatrabaho kasama ang mga urban poor na lesbian, bisexual women, and trans men. So base po doon sa diniscuss kanina nila Naomi, ito po yung mga assigned at birth na babae, or kung titignan niyo po sa society natin sila yung tunay na babae na tinatawag. Pero ang trans men po, kung maalala nyo rin po, ay sila yung nag-identify as men. Na pinanganak man sila na babae o inassign as babae, sila po ay nag-identify as men. So ang aming pong tutok ay mga LGBT na nasa urban poor sector po. So doon sa aming mga tutok na sektor na ito, marami na rin po kaming na-encounter at narinig ng mga kwento nila. Sa tulad po nung na-mention ni Percy kanina na isang estudyante po sa Quezon City Public School, sinabihan siya ng kanyang teacher na kapag hindi siya nagsuot ng palda na uniform, ibabagsak niya yung buong klase. Hindi lamang po yung estudyante mismo. So, anong ginawa ng estudyante? Hindi siya pumasok. Kasi, diba, lahat yun, kukuyugin ka ng mga klase mo. Lahat ng klase, mga klase mo, ibabagsak ng teachers. Hindi na siya pumasok. So, hindi siya nakagraduate ng high school man na. So, nag-ending siya. Ang trabaho niya ngayon ay nagpapantay sa isang computer shop. Hindi siya nakagraduate siya na maayos at nakahanap na maayos ng trabaho, ay hindi siya nakahanap ngayon na maayos ng trabaho. At yung maganda sana yung decent paying job, kumbaga. Isa pa po ay meron din naman kaming na-document naman po. Sa Barangay Health Center, di ba po, karamihan ang nakapila dyan is mga nanay, or yung babae na buntis, or may dala-dalang mga maliliit na anak. May isa po masculine presenting, o kanyang expression po ay more of panlalaki na tinatawag natin. At siya po ay nakapila para po magpa-check up kasi nararamdaman na siyang kakaibang pain sa kanyang abdomen area. Mismo si barangay health worker, sinabihan siya, ba't ka nakapila dyan? Hindi ka naman babae. Meron din po kami na-document na isang nag-a-apply siya sa trabaho, nakapila sa isang ahensya, nakapila siya, masculine presenting din po na lesbiana or yung butch na tinatawag. Ang sinabi agad sa kanya nung nasa parang HR siya mismo, hindi kami tumatanggap ng katulad mo. Ay, ano po ba kami? Alien po ba kami? Ano po ba yun? Hindi kami tumatanggap. Ganun na agad ang sinabi sa kanya without even looking at the credentials of the person applying for the job. Ilan lamang po ito sa mga na-document namin at narinig namin kwento mula doon sa mga kasama namin sa community mismo. Ang tutok po kasi namin is more on those economically disadvantaged individuals in the communities. Within Quezon City nga lang po eh. Bago pa po nagkaroon ng Quezon City Gender Fair Ordinance itong mga to. Although even nagkaroon na po ng Gender Fair Ordinance, medyo mahirap pa rin po yung implementation ng Gender Fair Ordinance ngayon. Hindi pa rin po ganun tindi yung panel ng kanyang pag-implement. Katulad nga po na nangyari kay Gretchen recently lang. At marami pa po ibang mga katulad niya na discriminate po even in public spaces. So kaya po nandito kami ngayon para isulong pa rin yung social equality bill or social anti-discrimination bill, not just here in the Senate but also in the lower house. Medyo nakakalungkot kasi the last Congress, nasayang yung ating efforts nung pinasa siya sa lower house. But still, tuloy lang ang laban. While the passage of the anti-discrimination law or social equality bill is certainly not a magic wand that will stop all acts of discrimination and violence against LGBTIQ people. It will most certainly be a clarion call that rightfully invokes the Equal Protection Clause of our fundamental law and the state's constitutional duty to value human dignity and respect human rights. Such a law will likewise serve as a palpable manifestation of the state's commitment to the universality of human rights and to its duty to uphold international covenants. Maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Maraming salamat din po. Now we'll hear from Disney Alvara sa tulong ni Miss Joy. You have the floor.
Hello. Hello po. Hello po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Disney from United Rainbow. I've been working with the organization for 9 years, advocating for deaf accessibility for deaf people or LGBT members. Oppression has been happening for the longest time. Kami po, ako po as a trans woman, if I may share my experience, nag-apply po ako. Tapos, pinanganak po akong lalaki, of course. Ang resume ko po sa pangalan ko po doon ay lalaki. Pero, ang sabi po sa akin sa HR, magpagubit ka. Kailangan mo magpagubit para ma-hire ka namin dito. Sabi ko po, bakit po? Ako po ay babae. Sabi niya, ay, pinanganak ng lalaki. Sundin mo kung paano ka pinanganak. I was very disappointed then. Hindi po ako nawalan po ako ng opportunity magtrabaho. Wala pong pwedeng tumulong sa akin noon. Ako po ay deaf, hirap maghanap ng trabaho, may kapansanan, tapos trans woman pa. So the oppression, not just once, twice, but thrice, sana po may inclusion na pwedeng mangyari. Tanggapin po ang bawat isa, ano po man siya. Bigyan po kami ng equality tulad ng bawat ako. Salamat po.
At maraming salamat sa iyo, Miss Disney. Palakpakan mo natin si Miss Disney. Salamat sa inyo at sa kwento mo, showing the multiple discriminations suffered and survived by the LGBTQIA+ community, also as a person with disability. So, mamuhay sa patuloy ng paglaban. At salamat din, Miss Joy, sa tulong mo. And now we'll hear from J.D. Cleophas. J.D. Leon Cleophas of the Pioneer Filipino Transgender. J.D.
So ako po si J.D. ng Pioneer Filipino Transgender Men Movement. Babasa lang po ako ng case na ipinasa sa akin. Actually, overnight marami pong binigay. Pero pumili lang po kami ng isa. So ito po isang case ni Chester Tehipol sa SM Marilao. Sabi niya po, nangyari po ilang taon na yung nakalipas, pero nag-mark na pala yun sa akin ito. I identified myself as a trans man and pumasok ako sa SM Marina, sa entrance. Siyempre, may male and female. Since I identified myself as a man, kahit hindi pa ako nag-undergo ng HRT, pumasok ako sa male. Pero ang ginawa sa akin ng guy, hinarang ako at sinabi sa female ako pumasok. Kaya ako wala na at hindi na ako ulit pumasok sa main entrance ng mall. Alam ko hindi ito kasing bigat ng ibang case pero nag-prepare ito sa akin. After nung incident, si Chester, naghahanap na lang siya ng ibang entrance ng mall na walang reason. Yung next naman po kay Jack, nangyari po sa LRT po sa Pao. Tumila ako sa mail since I've been doing that for a month now. Si Jack po ay 6 months on testosterone. ko lang pong tanong dito, kung totoo na gusto natin ng pantay-pantay na karapatan, bakit kailangan tayo magkakalalaki?
Thank you, Jay.
Kasama po ako sa lecture.
Mabuhay ka for that beautifully challenging statement. It goes not only to trans men, but I think to all men of whatever soul na bakit kailangan pagkakalaki para lamang sa respeto. And thank you for continuing to fight against being made invisible or silent.
Dagdag ko rin po, kami po kasi talaga, birang-bira kami ma-identify. So, siguro, bukod kayo yan. Dalawa lang yata ang trans.
But the committee sees you, Jay, and the committee welcomes you today. Salamat sa presensya. At this point, mga kasama, we've heard the first batch of the advocates. Dinggin naman natin yung first batch ng mga government agencies dahil sa mga statements so far, most discrimination happen in schools, workplace. So we will hear from the first batch of government agencies. Pero bago nun, i-acknowledge ko muna si Sen. Amy to make a manifestation about the social equality bill. Sen. Amy, have the floor.
Yes, maraming salamat po at talagang na sumabi dito. Thank you very much for your testimony and for bearing witness. Sabi ko sa amin dito sa Senado, labis-labis na nakakalito ang kategorya ng LGBTQ. Sabi nila, di raw maintindihan at napakasalimuot ng usaping tungkol sa gender. Sabi, paano daw i-enforce at napakalabo naman daw ng iba't ibang kategorya. Totoo ang lahat ng sumbat sa iba sa amin dito. Subalit, eto nga, sure, it could be simpler, especially for those who struggle with discrimination, with gender itself on a day-to-day basis, with oppression, and all the rules that are piled up against them. However, if there is a problem, and it seems to many people this is a problem, let this problem be a chance for us to do our very best, to show the world that the very best of the Filipino is open, humane, compassionate, and nurturing. Let us show that this will be the Senate, the 18th Congress that will finally pass the SOGI bill. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Amy. So on that happy note, we continue on that hopeful fighting note.
Maraming salamat rin, Lisa.
Yes.
Magkasama na kami dito.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So first, the batch of government agencies, tungkol sa kung may mga polisiya ba kayo sa inyong mga respective agencies para protektahan ang mga LGBTIQs at kung may komento din po kayo sa social equality bill, I'd like to call in this first batch DepEd, DOLE, and CSC. So Director Jennifer Lopez of DepEd, you have the floor. Parang mag-cue yung musika, no? Yes, ma'am. You have the floor.
Good morning po. Good morning, everyone. Okay, let me read the petition paper for the Department of Education on behalf of our Deputy Secretary, who is now at the committee hearing on basic education and culture at the House of Congress of the Union. So for the consideration of the House of Representatives, this 18th Congress, our House Bill numbers 51 to 67, 1034, 1108, 1451, 1854, 3245, there's too many already, but
Ms. Jennifer, before you continue, kinonsider nyo rin po yung Senate bills.
yes,
Tato po. Thank you, ma'am.
Kaya parang, so sobrang tagal na po pala nito ating pinag-usapan.
2 dekada lang
Yeah.
po.
So let me just enumerate. So, and of course, Senate Bill number 459, 412, and 689, collectively known as the anti-discrimination bills on sexual orientation and gender identity. So, after a careful perusal of the upper-stated bills, the Department of Education interposes no objection to the intent of the said measures, seeking to prohibit the discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity or expression, or SOGI, and voices its strong support thereto. Can I just read all? Okay, no less than the 1987 of state policies and principles, as well as obligations with regard to education to it. Article 2, Section 11, the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Article 2, Section 14, the state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. Article 14, Section 1, the state shall protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality education at all levels and shall take appropriate steps to make such education accessible to all. Article 14, Section 3, Paragraph 2, all educational institutions shall inculcate patriotism and nationalism, foster love of humanity, respect for human rights, appreciation of the role of national heroes in the historical development of the country, teach the rights and duties of citizenship, strengthen ethical and spiritual values, develop moral character and personal discipline, encourage critical and creative thinking, broaden scientific and technological knowledge, and promote vocational efficiency. The department is not only bound by the fundamental policies and principles of the state, but is likewise obligated to prevent all forms of discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity out of respect for the dignity of every human person and human rights. Furthermore, the realization of these bills would not only translate into the harmonization of national policies, but of alignment to the generally accepted principles of the international order. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women have gained prominence in the international community. All of these international covenants echo the same sentiments that all persons are guaranteed equal and effective protection against discrimination on any ground, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, nation or social origin, property, birth, or other status. The growing international acceptance over such base rights in the international law is not only deserving of ratification by the states, but calls for constant recognition and celebration of all agencies, this department included. This department strongly supports the prohibition on the refusal of admission or expulsion of a person from an educational institution, imposition of disciplinary sanctions, and refusal or revocation of the accreditation or registration of any organization or group solely on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity as stated in the provision on the discriminatory acts. In defense thereto, the department has expressly recognized the myriad of laws which advocate for the cause of anti-discrimination. Republic Act Number 9710, otherwise known as the Magna Carta for Women, realizes that equality of men and women entails the abolition of the unequal structures and practices that perpetuate discrimination and inequality. Out of such noble intent arose the creation of institutional mechanisms such as gender awareness development or GAD, gender mainstreaming, and women empowerment policies. As to the field of education, Section 16, Paragraph C of the law likewise provides that expulsion and non-readmission of women faculty due to pregnancy outside of marriage shall be outlawed. No school shall turn out or refuse admission of female students solely on account of her being pregnant outside of marriage during her term in school. Presidential Decree Number 442, otherwise known as the Labor Code of the Philippines, as amended, expressly states that discrimination is prohibited. Thereby, it shall be unlawful for any employer to discriminate against any woman employee with respect to terms and conditions of employment solely on account of her sex. Republic Act Number 8972, otherwise known as the Solo Parent Act, provides for benefits and privileges
101 po ba? Yung mga guro natin, mga principal, guidance counselors, non-teaching personnel sa DepEd. Pero kung kasi kayong child protection policy at may anti-bullying, may SOGI 101 po ba sa mga responsible persons in the DepEd?
God. Through gender and development.
Yes. So, initially from the perspective of the women's movement na nag-overlap sa LGBTIQA+. Pero wala pa po talagang SOGI 101 as in yung pinresent na Disney yung
Usually those presentations po are included in the gender and development training and activities conducted by per governance level, central office level, regional level, up to schools division offices and the schools.
Pero given po yung mga kwento ng mga advocates natin about still discriminatory policies on hair, makeup, etc., baka this is a good opportunity na pagkyamanin pa natin yung gender sensitivity training ng ating mga DepEd personnel also from this perspective. Yes, so yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Jen. And just for the knowledge of everyone, pwede po tayo magpatuloy hanggang alas 2 ng hapon. Lunch is on the way, so we will be hearing all the rest of our government agencies and advocates. So at this point, let's hear now from the DOLE about discrimination in the workplace, Attorney Gerard Mariano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to everyone for this room, a pleasant morning. I would like to put on record, Madam Chair, that the department has yet to issue its official statement or position paper on the subject deals, but we shall be submitting this as soon as possible. But we have this brief message in response to the question we posed earlier on existing policies addressing discrimination and so on. So we'd like to start off by saying that the Department of Labor and Employment highly supports the bills on anti-discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity or expression filed by Senator Teresa Ontiveros and Senator Jaime Marcos. The DOLE acknowledges the equal access of everyone's equal access to employment opportunities. And with this, the DOLE also notes that these bills are consistent with the International Labour Convention concerning the elimination of violence and harassment in the world of work. Although presently this convention is yet to be ratified, the state, through the Department of Labor and Employment, has been preparing an action plan underway in support of its ratification. The convention specifically contains a proviso that will bind member countries to adopt laws, regulations, and policies ensuring the right to equality and non-discrimination in employment and occupation, including for women workers, as well as for workers and other persons belonging to one or more vulnerable group or groups in situations of vulnerability. With this development in the international arena, the DOLE looks forward to the passing and implementation of a similar anti-discrimination act in the national Senate. As far as the DOLE is concerned, we shall support the creation of a grievance mechanism that shall be mandatory for all private establishments. In fact, there are a number of mechanisms already in place that can be utilized to address discriminatory practices on account of SOGI. At present, the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995 mandates the creation of a committee on development investigation that deals with sexual harassment cases within the establishment. And aside from this, it is likewise mandatory for organized establishments to have a grievance procedure and a grievance committee included in CDA that will address employees' issues and concerns arising out of any violation of their rights. And in view of this, Madam Chair, we reiterate our full support to the subject senators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney Mariano. Just an update for everyone. Lalo na natin pinalawak yung Anti-Sexual Harassment Act sa kailan ng pagbasa ng Safe Streets and Public Spaces Act, which identifies, prohibits, and penalizes hindi na lang yung mga sexist and misogynistic acts by a superior to a subordinate
Attorney Mariano, narinig mo yung experience ni Roy Galpo kanina?
Yes po, Senator.
I don't suggest, but I urge you to investigate. Kawawa naman yun. Narinig mo yung kanyang experience kanina, talagang kawawa, di ba?
Yes, Senator.
Please,
We noted.
kung hindi pa nakarating sa inyong atensyon yan, I am bringing it up to you. Please, ibisigan. Anong kumpanya na sangkot doon?
Concentrics Philippines.
Concentric.
Yes.
Please, special mention to that company. Follow up mo.
Yeah, thank you po.
Then in succeeding hearings, I will follow up yung actions taken on that. Please.
Sige po, Senator. Actually, Senator, we noted lahat po ng mga analysis na issues pertaining to, or that has something to do with employment. So,
Okay.
thank you po kay Sir Ted and Ms. Rod and you kay Ms.
Thank you, Dr.
Salamat. Sir Coco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate what the committee is doing, that you are documenting cases of actual discrimination. Yung mga kwento nila. Kasi ang dapat kasi natin sagutin talaga is ano ang maitutulong ng SOGI bill para mawala o ma-address yung mga na-share na mga karanasan ng discrimination. Kasi marami ang nagsasabi, ang pakiramdam ay punishable na rin yung discrimination na ginawa na yung mga narinig natin, punishable na sila ngayon with the current set of laws. That's why we have to convince legislators on the need for this SOGI bill. Additional, kasi sabi lang ni Chairperson, there's a new law, safe streets and public spaces. Tapos if we listen carefully sa DepEd statement, they support, however, academic freedom, ... Attorney Mariano Dole says that's already what I've heard are already prohibited under present law. Tama ba yung kanyero? Unless I am misquoting you, or I am too much simplifying your statement. Parang gano'n, di ba? Na yung mga reklamo na narinig natin na discrimination, si Disney, for example, si Disney, pinapa-haircut na siya. Under present law, may violation o wala?
Meron po, Senator, on account of discrimination po.
Precisely.
Yes po.
Kasi, okay, talagang nakakagalit naman yung mga discrimination na naririnig natin. Meron pang sharing dito na hindi nagtuloy sa pag-aaral dahil sa trauma. Yung isa, pinagsuot ng curtain. Yung isa, peer pressure. Grabe yung indirect peer pressure dahil buong klase ibabagsak. Dahil Ms. Lopez of DepEd, may violation o wala? Present law. Into the microphone, para nakarecord.
Actually, we have here DepEd Child Protection Policy for DepEd more than 40 series of 2012. Elaborated here po ang yung mga violations just in case. And even
Apply them to what you heard. Pwede na may cause of action na at this very moment, even without the SOGI bill. Tama, diba? So, that's it. So, kilusan ngayon natin yung ngayon lahat yan. Ngayon, siguro, we will just help each other find out which of the experiences or complaints na lalabas, kahit hindi pa lumabas dito, but maybe published in some of your studies, which will be the ones now addressed by the SOGI bill. Okay, klaruhin natin yun, kasi otherwise, there will be no need for the SOGI bill. Ang lumalabas, confusion pa. Like for example, itong case ni Gretchen, na mabuti naman, I'm glad that si Gretchen did not withdraw the case yata. She was intending, or did not pursue the case, she was intending to file against the, ano ba tawag mo doon? And then yung isa naman, yung janitress, withdrew her justification case against Gretchen. Oh, sana ganun kasi may confusion pa eh. As yung sinabi nga ni Senator Marcos, there is really confusion. I kept asking the chairperson, si JD, transgender man, tama? Am I correct? Meaning to say, you were born a female?
Yes po.
Oh, mga ganun. So may mga ganun. So we don't want this na in Quezon City, the first LGU to have passed an LGBTQ plus ordinance, gender fair ordinance, the first LGU. Therefore, it becomes the actual laboratory for the implementation of this law, a preview to a national implementation. Ang ending natin, kasuhan. Ayaw natin ang ganun kasi this will not help the cause actually. Matatakot natin, ending ganito, ano nangyayari? And then, syempre, meron din po nag-research dun sa situation, dun sa this incident brought into national attention by Senator Ontiveros. Buti yan, nag-atrasa ng kaso kasi kawawa talaga. Hindi naman mayaman yung journalist na can afford to hire a lawyer. Abala din sa kanya. Meron din akong information, ito, picture pala, na meron naman daw chairperson din na third CR na gender neutral. So, was there really discrimination in this incident? So, yung mga ganun ba? So, Quezon City has taken the lead, so it becomes the laboratory for the implementation of this concept in a certain LGU. Pero sana hindi po mauwi sa kasuhan because this is not what we want na mangyari. We clarify our terms, we clarify the scope of the ordinance and the law. There are still the buts there, I mean, academic freedom, and then parental authority. To what extent will this bill now interfere with parental authority? So, kunyari, a parent sees a child of a minor age, or still in the age of minority, deviating from his concept of what the child's gender should be, which should be equal to the sex at birth. Okay? Do you blame the parent for thinking that way? Hindi, kasi iba rin siya sa inyo. Just as dapat ang panawagan ngayon, we should respect yung pagkakaiba ng LGBTQ plus community. So, you do not blame the parent for thinking that way. Can the parent prevent the child from deviating from the sex at birth? Will the SOGI bill, when it becomes law, now interfere with the parents' parental authority? Yung mga ganun. So, kailangan natin ito. And if the bill should undergo some processes, let it be as detailed as possible. Huwag po natin iiwan sa mga possible IRR na yan. Magkakagulo talaga po tayo. Kasi it must be now the will of the representatives of the people expressed through the detailed words in the bill before it becomes law, para klaro. The clearer it is, the better for all of us. So, yun lang po. And then I hope si Gretchen will consider if it's a criminal case. I mean, wag naman tayo mag-file ng criminal case kasi kawawa po lahat kasi the janitress was also doing her job, na nalito rin siya, ano yung extent ng ordinance. Si Gretchen was also exercising her right under the ordinance pursuant to her identification. Problem with identification is you can keep it in your mind. You are not obligated under the law to announce your identification. Tama? So if you're not read by a third party, can you blame that person na hindi niya nabasa yung mind mo? Because even the trans woman, no, is a male at birth identifying as a female. Tama ba yan? Tama ba yan? That person is not required to dress up like a trans woman. Tama? All the law requires is that the person identifies as a woman or a female. Tama?
But that would be her gender expression.
Kaya nga, but there is no requirement in the law or in the bill that you should dress up like a woman because there is no particular way of dressing ng ibang letters. Tama? How does a queer dress up? Wala. Diba? So now, yun ang problema. How will now a third person, how do you expect that third person to be able to read your mind when you are now manifesting, lining up something? She's like MRT, NRT. So, yun lang ang request ko po. Maganda ito, nakakatulong po itong ginagawa natin that we are stating, documenting all of those discrimination na napipilit ninyo kasi talagang mali po yun. Mali po yun. So maybe it's time to review uniform regulations, haircut regulations, whatever. May problem din tayo sa korte kasi meron isang case na hindi nga ito gender case but ang chairperson, it was a male but mahaba ng long hair. That's how he wants to express his style, the gender identification. But the judge ordered him to cut his hair. So we will have some problems. So, yun lang po yun. I appreciate what the committee is doing. Very good. We will go over all of this sharing. Kung pwede pa nga, make part of the records, kung may mga studies kayo. Kasi isa-isahin natin kung ano yung particular discrimination na hindi pa address ng present laws, which maybe doon makatulong ang SOGI bill. You have to point those out to us. Kasi kung natutulungan na, kung covered na rin naman lahat, why add to the confusion? Nagiging divided society po tayo. Kami nga, divided family na eh. Sa issue niyan, ganun sa issue lang ni Gretchen on whether she or he had the right to use the female siya. No, ako kasi scientifically speaking, I think I'm correct when I say he. But out of respect, because Gretchen wants to be identified as a female, I can also use she. So walang mali o tama doon. Sa he or she. So ganun na yung nangyayari. So, ganun lang po yung aking at least my personal opinion. Maganda itong ginagawa natin. We are really, we have to eliminate or minimize discrimination in our country, in our society. Grabe ang kwento ni Disney. Disney is PWD, and then she's trans woman. Alam niyang PWD na siya, alam niyang discriminated against na siya. Kung pwede sana, hindi na siya trans woman, pero hindi talaga mapigilan. So it's a mirror. Double difficulty yun. So that means, tanggapin na natin na hindi talaga pwede nang ikahon na kailangan pilitin, lalaki ka, babae ka, tatanggapin natin yun. So, but also accept the way of thinking of a parent, na sa belief din niya, gusto niya yung anak niyang male at birth, lalaki din or male din ang pagpapalaki. So that's now the challenge which I will be bringing up in the interpellations plenary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sen. Coco. Speaking of what the committee is trying to do, and I would like to affirm the presence of my sister here, Gretchen, my sisters here, all the trans women here, fellow women. What the committee is trying to do in the face of these continued experiences and documentation of discrimination na hindi pa talaga nakakayanang hulihin ng mga existing laws natin, whether in the education sector, in the sector of employment, sa usapin ng pag-access ng government services at iba pa. Even if those laws were fully and properly implemented, which apparently may mga gaps dahil tuloy-tuloy itong mga dokumentasyon ng diskriminasyon, mukhang kulang pa ang mga existing laws. Yes, po-point out po natin very convincingly sa plenary interpellations at saka period of amendments kung bakit evidently kailangan ng isang SOGI equality law, isang anti-discrimination law. Para siyang magiging mother law, para siyang isang Magna Carta of LGBTIQA+, and in fact of all Filipino citizens, dahil nga tayong lahat ay may SOGI-SC, but at the same time, in urgent response, hindi na nga urgent kasi dalawang dekada na at least, in urgent response sa unrelenting experience of discrimination ng mga LGBTIQA+. At of course, ang pag-asa pangarap natin, hindi yung mauuwi lahat sa kasuhan lamang. No, yung kasuhan may be a means to an end. Gusto natin mauwi una sa hustisya para sa mga biktima survivor at pangalawa, preventive, pagbabago ng kultura, pagbabago ng sistema natin para mabawasan hanggang mawaksi yung discrimination. The matters of parental authority we will discuss again. I believe and I can very convincingly kung paano babalansehin at hahanapin how will this coexist with the best interest of the child. Gaya na kinikwento ng mga marami-rami resource persons natin, nagiging ulat ang tao dyan, ang bata dyan, at a very young age. Some would even argue, child psychologists, at the age of magiging verbal na bata. So what is that, 2 years old? Or who knows, maybe at an even earlier stage. Para hindi ito mauwi lang sa usapin ng deviation between parents and children, pero pagtataguyod talaga sa pagkakilala ng bata sa sarili niya from a very young age. And now I'd like to ask Ms. Naomi to speak to the issues.
Yes, ma'am. I would just like to respond to the points raised by the good Senator Coco Pimentel. Categorically, I would like to say to the members of the committee and all people present, yes, there is a need for a social equality law. Because right now, there is no law that protects LGBTIQ Filipinos from discrimination and violence on the basis of our sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics. So there is no question about it. If we will say that there are already existing laws to protect members of the LGBTIQ community, then why is it so hard for members of my community to seek justice and redress for all the wrongs that have been committed to our persons based on our SOGI SC? If we will use the same kind of logic, then why did we revise the rape law? Because we saw that there was a gap in the anti-rape law to protect women fully from sexual violence. Why did we revise the anti-sexual harassment law to protect women? Because there was a gap in that law. Because that law only protected women from workplace-based sexual harassment. And so we saw that sexual harassment also happened outside workplaces, even in streets. So there was a need for a law that would stop sexual harassment in all public spaces. And to the point of the good senator, if there was discrimination that happened in the case of Gretchen, yes, there was discrimination that happened in the case of Gretchen. We can argue the legalities of the law. Maybe you can say that Gretchen was discriminated on the basis of sex, which is also in the Constitution. But the Constitution does not mention sexual orientation and gender identity. And so therefore, if it gets to a court, maybe Gretchen's case will not be as strong. Because if we will argue Gretchen's case as a discrimination case on the basis of sex, then we might have a problem there. But definitely, there was a case and an incident of discrimination that happened in Gretchen's case because the janitress at Farmers Plaza was insisting, even without evidence, just on the basis of looking at Gretchen, that Gretchen, to her mind, possessed the incorrect genitalia and therefore must use the toilet that is dictated by that genitalia. And that kind of ignorance is ignorance of the reality of sexual orientation and gender identity. That is why we need a law that would say that the discrimination that Gretchen experienced was on the basis of her gender identity as a trans woman. To the point about parental authority, we would like to tell the good senator that we have many parents out there who support and love their LGBTIQ children and allow their LGBTIQ children to reach their full potential as LGBT. And I believe that the wording of the SOGI equality bill now as it is has the best interests not only of children but of all Filipinos, because not only LGBTIQ Filipinos can be discriminated on the basis of SOGI, but even those who identify as heterosexual. So yes, there is a need for a SOGI equality law.
Yes, thank you very much. Naomi beat me to it, but yes, there is a glaring need, there is a huge lacuna legis. It is important that we pass the SOGI bill so that we declare for all and for all time that this is the policy of the state. Na maliwanag, kahit hindi mauwi sa admin case, ay kilalanin ang lahat ng tao, ang gay rights, at LGBTQ, at lahat ng rights, talagang human rights, kinikilala po natin. So that's very important po, and I think it's absolutely necessary that we have this declaration of state policy once and for all. Wala na sa ating konstitusyon, wala sa ibang batas, meron nga katpi-katpi, nakakalat kung saan-saan, tingin-tingin, pero walang deklarasyon na maliwanag na ito na ang state policy. Ikalawa, in response din kay Senator Coco, naintindihan ko kung minsan nakakalito at talagang napakagulo ng usapin. But the fact that it is difficult, that it is inchoate and confusing, merely highlights how important it is. The issue of peace in Mindanao, as you are both from Mindanao, both Coco and Bato, is confusing and in fact terrifying for so many of us in Luzon. And yet we must deal with it. This is the same case as we confront today with the issue of gender and the failure of the mainstream to recognize those members, friends, and others in the community who are in that place. And therefore, while it is confusing, inchoate, and difficult, it merely shows that this is very important, central, and fundamental to the existence of so many Filipinos.
Thank you, Sen. Ivy. Of course, I'd like to offer to my sister senator and fellow author of the social equality bills na lalo na siguro sa mga cisgender heterosexual tulad natin, it only seems inchoate because we're so used to, ako, privileged ako na to have grown up, akala ko male, female lang, ganun kasimple and everything matches with that. But I'm so glad that now we are challenged, as Anya said, to look at a much more complex, diverse, colorful reality of in our society. I'd like to just have some follow-up questions to Dole and DepEd before we call CSC on the for government agencies to Attorney Mariano. Paano naman po yung contractual employees? Paano po remedy nila pag may discrimination? May policy ba ang Dole? Kasi karamihan ng mga kwentong ikinuwento sa atin were of discrimination during the hiring process. So wala pa yung application ng labor code, wala pa yung operation ng LLRC sa mga grievances na maaari nilang ito.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Madam Chair. In case po of contractual employees mo na po, kasi they are considered naman po as employees of their concerned agency. So they can always raise their grievances po sa kanilang concerned agencies po relating to discrimination. Pero as to those po, like the case po of CERTE, yung mga nasa hiring process pa na, hindi pa nga po applicable yung labor code because wala pa po ang employer-employee relationship. Pero under the same labor code po kasi it is already deemed as an unlawful act. The fact na may discrimination po sa hiring process, sa selection process. So, the aggrieved party po has a remedy naman under the law which pwedeng criminal if I'm not mistaken. But I will have to look into it po kasi it is declared po unlawful, as an unlawful act. So, basically po practically it is already by cause of action na po siya for that.
Thank you, Attorney Mariano. Although I was about to say na actually, this then is a very good example kung saan yung isang gap that would be filled by a social equality bill. Sa DepEd po, kay Ms. Jennifer, are these yung mga ikonento din na mga advocates and lecturers? Ito po ba mga makeup policy, uniform policy, hair policy, mga pink slip in some schools, hindi po ba ito pinagbabawal na ng DepEd? So, otherwise, why are such schools still able to impose such discriminatory policies to them as hair policy, etc.? So, with regard to that, so we have written already the civil service law because we're still following our DepEd memorandum number 84, series of 2016 regarding our uniform policy.
also following Civil Service Commission Memorandum Circular Number 14, Series of 1991 on the dress code. So more specifically on uniforms. So we have this written them last July 2019, and we're just waiting for the response.
Thank you, ma'am. So now maybe we should hear from CSC, Ms. Alma Foronda, Director Alma Foronda. And then maybe ma'am would also like to address the question raised by stories such as that of Deg earlier. What are the redress grievances for those discriminated against during the hiring process?
Good morning po. Good morning to everyone. The official comment of the CSC is still being finalized, Madam Chair, but we will be submitting that one soon. But then, nevertheless, the Civil Service Commission fully supports the SOGI equality bills that are presently pending, since they are pursuant to the mandate of our Constitution for the protection of human rights, as well as the fact that they are in compliance with our international commitments, international law commitments. And the CIC is also in agreement with Section 6 of Senate Bill number 412 regarding the imposition of penalties for the violations of certain provisions that are committed by government officials and employees. Because we observe that that particular provision is not present in the other versions of the bill. So we are fully supportive of making these violations as administrative violations as well, if committed by officials and employees. So as it is now we have several offenses under our administrative code. We have conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service. We have simple misconduct, which we can say might cover certain violations. But these are very generic offenses, and they are what we call as umbrella offenses. So it would be very well if we can specify offenses that pertain particularly to the issue of the LGBTQ. It would help a lot if we highlight those kinds of offenses. Because, for example, offensive conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service is defined simply as acts that tarnish the image of the office. So if an offense pertaining to LGBTQ plus would be defined with more specificity, then that would help the office a lot in determining whether such an offense really exists. And also, as regards the offense of simple misconduct, this is defined. The definition for this one is a transgression of an established rule or action. So as you can see, these are generic offenses, but if we state violations with more specificity, it could also help out in resolving issues pertaining to the LGBTQ+. And then, regarding the grievance machinery, we also, it is found in Senate Bill 159, but not in Senate Bill 412. But let me just mention that the grievance machinery, as established by the civil service, will just be activated if it concerns a matter that does not constitute an offense. So if we consider these violations as offenses, it will already be out of the grievance machinery and will be within the disciplinary jurisdiction of the government agencies.
Thank you, Director Foronda, for your and the Commission's openness to explicitly including prohibited acts on the basis of SOGI-SC, so as to eliminate those kinds of discrimination and to deter further violations. Could I ask in particular about your uniform policy? Does the Commission allow trans women to use the female uniform, and vice versa? Does it allow the trans
We have received several queries already pertaining to that matter, and the Commission is still studying as to how we can enhance our rules on the wearing of uniform as provided for in CSCMC 14 series of 1991. But then, as far as I know, the guidelines on the wearing of uniforms are given to the agency themselves for them to do their internal guidelines. And the Commission is just giving general guidelines for everyone to follow.
In formulating those general guidelines, will the Commission be open to allowing for gender-neutral uniforms that may be worn by its employees or the employees of the public sector of the bureaucracy based on their gender expression?
We will be studying that, Madam Chair. It would be possible to have amendments on the regulations.
Thank you, ma'am, for that possibility. So now we'll be going on to hear from the second batch of advocates for our social equality bill, beginning with John Paul Aves. You may babay na. You have the floor.
Madam Chair, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Pimentel, everyone. I think all of us can agree that schools are supposed to be safe and nurturing spaces where all of us can learn about ourselves and the world around us. However, we also learn a different lesson in school. It is also in these very spaces that a lot of LGBTQIA, gaya ko, first learned through very traumatic experience na kami ay nabubuli, nahaharas, at nababiolate dahil lamang LGBTQI kami. Imbes na makilala at patanggap namin ang aming mga sarili, natututunan lang namin na kami ay kakaiba, hindi normal, at mas mababa sa iba. Discrimination on the basis of soji is alive and kicking in the academe. The United Nations Development Program in Being LGBT in Asia reported the many forms of discrimination in educational institutions. Ako din po ay galing sa isang Catholic school kung saan ako ay nag-aral for more than 12 years. And I have experienced firsthand the gender insensitivity of our existing curriculum, isang kultura ng bullying, and the existence of anti-LGBTQI policies gaya ng required haircuts, gendered uniforms, repressive dress codes, and bans on same-sex relationships. Schools, under the guise of academic freedom, continue to implement such discriminatory policies without punishment. In March 2012, 6 high school boys had their diplomas withheld by a Catholic school in Marikina after they uploaded photos on Facebook that appeared they were kissing one another. Imagine. Discrimination does not only hamper us from fully exercising our right to education. Malaki din po ang epekto nito sa buhay ng mga LGBTQI na kabataan. In March 2013, a second-year high school student in Batangas killed himself over his classmates bullying him for being supposedly gay. Research also shows that young LGBTQI Filipinos are 2 times more likely to contemplate suicide than their non-LGBTQI peers because of discrimination. LGBTQI youth could become even more unmotivated to learn upon knowing that even their educators are not immune from discrimination. Just this year, Ms. Hermie Monterde, a transgender professor at the University of the Philippines, Manila, opened up about workplace discrimination after she was denied her tenureship for first professional and interpersonal concerns. May discrimination po sa ating mga paralan, and it is harming the hope of our nation. Sabi ng mga kalaban ng Social Equality Bill, meron namang anti-bullying law or child protection policy ang DepEd at mga local anti-discrimination ordinances para solusyonan ito. Pero we have to understand that even with these policies, discrimination still exists. You cannot change this culture on that alone. According to the Human Rights Watch, monitoring and implementation of said policies have been weak and ineffective. marami pa rin mga LGBTQI youth na nakakaranas ng bullying sa mga eskwelahan dahil sa kanilang SOGI. Likewise, aside from the fact that the local anti-discrimination ordinances in the Philippines only protect about 11.4 to 15% of Filipinos, they provide no strong mechanisms to effectively solve this problem. We need nothing less than an anti-discrimination law. An anti-discrimination law that can address the many phases of discrimination and actually have teeth to punish offenders. A national anti-discrimination law that will fight hate and prejudice and that will truly protect and empower the hope of our nation, regardless of our SOGI. Let's not wait before more LGBTQI youth are denied their diploma because of their SOGI, punished for standing up to repressive anti-LGBTQI policies, or bullied by classmates until they end up taking their lives. Ang kailangan na po namin ay pagmamahal, pagtanggap, at mga espasyo na ligtas sa diskriminasyon. Magbebente na po ang SOGI Equality Bill. Sana naman ipag-graduate niyo na siya sa Kongreso. We urge you to pass SOGI Equality now. Thank you.
Salamat, Joshua. The committee hears you loud and clear. Sana nga ay maisagawa na. Intention po na maisagawa ngayong Congress. Thank you. Now we will hear from the Executive Director of TLM Share Collective, Anastasia Malasica. Yeah.
Maraming salamat po sa Producer. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. At magandang tanghali. The Filipino LGBTQ experiences discrimination and violence are not isolated but systemic. The United Nations, being LGBTQ issues mentioned earlier, identified several issues being experienced by Filipino LGBTQ. Violence being committed by the family members, mental health depression, which was again shared by Roy earlier, discrimination, transphobia, misogyny, bullying, HIV/AIDS, to name a few. In a survey that we have conducted 2 years ago with 600 plus online respondents, more than 70% experience unfair treatment or bias attitude because of their social media. What is more alarming is that only 12% out of the 70 reported the case or incident to proper authorities, such as the school principal, whatever official, employer, or the police. A lot of the respondents, 51%, have to hide their identity from their family, friends, colleagues, and community for fear of rejection, ridicule, losing one's employment, scholarship, baka palayasin sa bahay, and so many more reasons. Among children, which was mentioned earlier, according to the 2015 National Baseline Study on Violence Against Children, 8 out of 10 LGBT children reported they experienced physical or psychological violence. That's quite high. Last week, TLM Share conducted an exploratory workshop on aging and elderly LGBT, which is again one of the most invisible population. One of the shared experiences among participants are incidents of discrimination despite of their age. They're making fun of them not because of their age, but because of their gender identity. Mga matatandang bakla o mga baklang wala kinatandaan. Age does not really matter in discrimination. It is systemic. Madam Chair, these experiences will continue to happen unless we pass SOGI Bill, SOGI Quality Bill. The proposed bill must be based on the following human rights principles, similar to the recently enacted HIV/AIDS policy of 2018. Number 1, LGBT Filipino community empowerment and participation must be ensured. There must be clear programs and interventions that are gender and age appropriate, such as transgender health, young LGBT program, leadership program, programs for aging and elderly LGBT, to name a few. And of course, there must be a clear redress mechanism for LGBTQ rather than just assigning to a police desk. The bill must also include budget allocation for programs and interventions identified, which if I look, when I look at the bill, there were no mention about budget allocation. So again, that's also an issue that we have to look into. It was also mentioned in the law about Congressional Oversight Committee. It stated that in the proposed bill, the Anti-Discrimination Oversight Committee shall cease to exist 6 years after its organization. What would replace the ATOC that would continue monitoring the implementation of the law after 6 years? My proposal is probably we can assign it to the Department of Justice if we're talking about justice, or replace the
social services. Again, these are just proposals or ideas that we can look into later. And there must be a provision of LGBT involved in the local government. Like again, I'm coming from HMAs wherein we're talking about local council. There are ordinances pertaining to local LGBT councils. Probably we can include that also in the social quality bill to ensure that whether with or without ADO, there is clear participation of the LGBT community at the local level. They can be involved in the development board and the health board. There are a lot of councils that LGBT people can be involved in terms of decision making. It was also mentioned earlier, I really don't want to associate or focus on the CR as part of human rights, but again, assigning PWCR for LGBT is practical. It only creates an image that we are disabled or impaired, which we don't want. Again, we can have a gender neutral bathroom or CR that will be more practical, that will be more empowering. Madam Chair, the passage of the social quality bill will create an enabling environment to promote empowerment among LGBT communities and of course to everyone. 3 years ago, I remember I was here and even cried. Because I was not going to cry. 3 years ago, we had our first meeting here. It was historic. But the thing is about that to make it historical. Let's pass social quality. Thank you very much.
Alright, kasi let's make it historical. Salamat sa pagkakataon. And from the advocates, we'll go back to our government agencies for our second batch. Mula naman sa security sector, yung armed forces, at saka yung national police. So, ma'am, sino po sa inyo magsasalita para sa forces of the Philippines? So, Major Sylvia Lina Desai. You have the floor.
So, good afternoon, ma'am, and all others and constituents present inside. So, in this sample of the armed forces of the Philippines, ma'am, we will be going to submit an official position paper on this. However, please be assured that the AFP respects human rights regardless of gender orientation and gender identity. So that's all for this.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll be awaiting that also because it came out in the media several years ago that both the AFP and the PNP, I don't know what the official form, but we're affirming equal opportunity employment, including for at least gays. I remember that you mentioned for gay men applying to the armed forces. Thank you, ma'am. So now to the Philippine National Police, Chief of the Women and Children Protection Office, Police Brigadier General. You have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Philippine National Police Women and Children Protection Center Police Support measures intended to uphold the dignity of all persons, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. As an office mandated to address gender-based violence directed against women and children, it welcomes the proposal to include among its clients lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgenders, intersex, and queers who are victims of discrimination. Recently, the Women and Children Protection Desk across the nation are manned by personnel with mandatory training in women and children protection, which includes gender sensitivity as a subject. In the last 3 years, approximately this training is dedicated to the topic on gender identity and sexual orientation. Thus, the Women and Children Protection Desk has been extending special care and protection to victims of gender-based violence and discrimination as defined by special laws, regardless of gender and sexual orientation. When a male adult person is a victim of rape under Republic Act number 8353, the Women and Children Protection Desk take cognizance of the case. The same is true of for LGBTQ who are victims of trafficking, sexual harassment, or are senior citizens requiring assistance. This means that the WCPD, despite its name, is actually a desk that caters to vulnerable sectors of all genders and ages so long as official law exists to take their rights. So just for your information, ma'am, I was surprised also to know when I assumed leadership of the WCPD and I go over with our statistics that for 2018, we have recorded a total of 466 testing last year for a new incident record form that will capture all the data on SUGIs. As we kind of have a correct diagnosis of the case, because I'm just wondering why a male was being raped by a male. So that's why, unless we have this tagging, for example, right now we have this tagging on IRF or just for male or female.
Thank you, General Macalvinta. Medyo na simulan nyo nang sagutin yung follow-up question ko. Sana kung paano kayo nag-data gathering at kung may disaggregation of data kayo, hindi lang on the two categories, male and female, pero in terms of SOGI, if not SOGI, SC. Tinetrain nyo po ba yung mga investigators nyo in similar SOGI 101 para sensitive sila sa data na dapat mag-capture and ma-reflect nila ng maayos sa database ng PNP?
So far, ma'am, for us, so given nothing particular. But we have already attended several meetings with the Commission on Human Rights. We have this bill last year for the legal gender recognition, and also we have already requested trainings to be included in our program instruction.
Sir, yung mga LGBTIQ ba, welcome po ba sila sa women's desk natin ng PNP?
Actually, ma'am, we're just awaiting for the official official stance of the Philippine National Guard. If you allow me to read a portion of that, that the Women and Children Protection Center acknowledges the discrimination against LGBTQIs persists in Philippine society, and that government should be the first to break barriers by raising awareness of LGBTQ rights and promoting acceptance of individual differences. The proposal to admit LGBTQ TIQs into the police force by legislation is a welcome proposition. Although the PNP has since declared that there is no gender-based discrimination in its recruitment program, it is best to institutionalize this position as a government agency.
Maybe there will be something to follow up there and later on, sir, kasi parang yung isang sinagin ko kanina sa opening statement na I love but. So pag may mga pasubali, baka that's an area for further policy clarification. And then, just because it's very tangy talaga, ayaw lang po kasi, I suppose natin lahat, maulit yung diskriminasyon na ginawa kay Gretchen. Na siya na ngayon tumawag ng police, pero siya pa yung pinosasan. Meron bang initial thinking ng PNP about this and then lessons for the institution moving forward in the light of itong effort na magpasa ng SOGI Equality Bill?
That is actually one of the purpose why we have this new intake form to be implemented by the PNP, and we have earlier on started the pre-testing because in coordination with other intelligence councils like the Philippine Commission on Women as well as the Interagency Council on Violence Against Women and Children that should capture all this data because right now, as I have said a while ago, we have this because we will be including this in our response protocol.
Salamat dyan. O yun na nga eh. Si Senator Coco rin ay nagtatanong. So bakit ba pinosasan pa? So I think that's something.
Madam Chairman, medyo nung narinig ko ngayon, nabasa ko rin yung report. Masyado naman yata sa overkill, pinosasan pa, and then actually, sinabi ng pulis yata, because they will, Gretchen, to correct me if I'm wrong, ang sabi ng pulis, requirement ng hospital, na pusasan ka before you undergo a medical examination. Nung nabasa ko, sabi ko, anong klase ito? Pupunta na tayo ngayon sa hospital, anong klase yung policy?
At saka niridicule pa si Gretchen, tinawag pa siya, unfortunately, ng isang kasama natin sa PNP, tinawag pa siyang Greg.
Thank you, ma'am. Una ma'am, nalulungkot po kami sa ganong naging response po ng kapulisan natin. In fact, we call the attention already of the because every station, sir, we have this witness desk, so we call the attention. And I understand that we really have to come up with a new protocol
plus community. Because what happened to me beyond the denial of entering a female washroom is more alarming. Because that could happen to anyone. It could happen to a cisgender, to a woman. It could happen to a male person. It could happen to everyone. I'm not fully aware of what the protocol is or what the due process when it comes to arresting a person. But the fact that you're being subject to ridicule, regardless of your gender, is something that is inhumane. And being called different names in front of public is absolutely unacceptable for me. At nung mga panahon po na yun, sa totoo lang, hindi ko po alam kung bakit ako pinagsasan. The fact na wala po akong ibang kasama, at ang tanging kasama ko lang po yung cellphone ko para makontak yung mga abogadong gustong tumulong sa akin at yung pamilya ko. Sinasagot ko po yung telepono na nasa likod ko po. Hindi ko po siya masalutan, hindi ko madikit sa tenga ko. Nag-video call po yung tita ko. Ay ko, tita, hindi ko na po tayo masasagot. Kasi nakapokus na po ako. Hindi alam ng pamilya ko kung saan sila pupunta dahil 2 presinto po ang pinagdalhan sa akin. Tapos po nasa gitna po ako ng isang pampublikong ospital na nakaposas nang wala naman akong kaso. Ano pong sasabihin natin sa mga taong nakakakita sa akin? 2 lang po ang choice ko nun. It's either na yumuko ako at mahiya, o tumingala pa rin ako dahil alam kong wala akong ginagawang masama. It can happen to me and it can happen to anyone. And that is truly unacceptable.
General, pwede po ba humingi ng commitment sa PNP na i-retrain po yung ating mga frontline PNP officers na maaaring lalapitan ng isang mamamayan asking for help na huwag yung ganyang pagtrato. Pagkatapos pang pusasan si Gretchen sa likod pa, pinaglaruan pa in the sense na nawawala daw yung susi. So kalahating oras siyang nakaposas sa likod at hindi talaga makatumiligid sa kanyang pamilya. Dagdag trauma kasi yung ganyan na nga yung sitwasyon, pinagtatawanan pa. Could the PNP kasabay ng pagbuo ng response protocol, retrain its personnel, but implement maayos yung protocol at huwag yung mga excessive and actually abusive behavior, further traumatizing the person. Sir.
Yes, ma'am, you have our commitment. And we will also look into the case of where there were SOPs, procedures, lapses, and maybe there were lapses committed, and so we'll look into that case.
Thank you, General Macavinta. Yes, Senator Roy.
Pwede hindi mo mapapalagay sa ganong sitwasyon na pag-criminal ginawa ko, bakit ka usasan na gano'n. Kaya ako lang, tanong ako, was there an incident before kapinusasan that prompted the policeman to handcuff you? Nagiging unruly ka ba? Nagiging nagwa-wild ka ba? Wala ka ba doon? Bakit ka pinusasan? Yun, gusto ko malaman pa na. To give a clearer picture of what had happened.
Salamat po sa tanong. Napakadali po sabihin na ang mga katulad po namin, dahil sa panghusga ng tao, ay magiging unruly, pagkat hindi po lahat ay nakakaintindi sa sitwasyon namin. Sa dami po ng mga maaari tumistiko laban sa akin, madali pong sabihin na kaya namin siya pinusasan pagkat hindi na namin siya makontrol.
Sandali lang ha. Baka ka magpapalalitan niya mo. Gusto ko lang klaruhin dito. Huwag ka magpasaring na dinesisyon lang kagad ka na ruli ka.
Ang kasagutan po doon, kaya po naka-live yung video na yun at documented. Kayo na po ang humusga kung anong uri ng pagkatao at pagtrato ang ginawa ko sa kanila para po sasan nila ako. Kung paano ko gumamit ng mga wastong salita para magtanong sa kanila, ano po ba ang kaso ko? Para po ma-document po pa kasi po may mga taong gustong tumulong sa akin kung anong sitwasyon. Kayo na po mismo ang humusga kung ang behavior ko sa video na available for everyone, kung ako po ba'y naging unruly at may sapat na dahilan para ako'y posasan.
Actually, Gretchen, ang napapakiramdaman ko ugali namin sa komite ay sympathetic towards you. Kaya gusto i-establish lang yung facts kung ano, kahit briefly lang, marami naman incidents leading up to pinosasan ka. Kasi yung ugali namin dito ay sobra naman yung pag-promote sa sector.
Ako, Madam Chair, ako, kahit na naging chief PNP ako, nag-retire ako sa polis. Kung gano'n lang, papasok sa CR ng babae, at ano pa, nag-complain yung mga babae doon na ayaw nila na merong hindi, na ayaw na ang pupunta po sila nandun si Gritzel. Bakit po sasalita? I'm just asking why, bakit ka kinusa? That's uncalled for. Kung ang basis ko lang, yung sinasabi ko, I have yet to hear the version of the police at saka nung authorities ng mall, bakit gano'n? Kaya hindi na, usas dito pa sa likod. Ano, nalaksak ka ba ng tao doon?
Or baka
Bugo ba ng tao?
Baka Senator, pwede natin tanungin si General Macabinda, ano ba yung sinabi ng mga PNP sa Station 7 kung bakit pinusasan pa nila si Gretchen? Kahit ganun ka simpleng sitwasyon na siya yung lumapit sa kanila para humingi ng tulong sa isang sitwasyon ng discrimination. Bakit daw siya pinusasan?
I'm not privy to the case, but we'll back to you, ma'am. Namin yan, no? But anyway, ma'am, I can only assume one thing. If he's being considered as if she is being considered as a suspect, I think that's the only reason so that in our police intervention, you can handcuff a particular person. Pero pag hindi naman po siya suspect dito, in fact, it turned out na...
Suspect of what crime?
Yes, sir.
Suspect of
So
what
kung
crime?
walang malinaw po na gano'n, so definitely, hindi ka nagdudan. Kasi in fact, lumalabas dito na biktima po siya.
So ikaw, Gretchen, yung pulis na nag-responde sa'yo, ha? Na nag-responde na pulis? Hindi yung mga gwardiya doon sa...
Inutusan po ng polis yung kwartya. Tapos sasanto ako ng patalikod dahil daw po minsan na daw po siyang natakasan. So baka makatakas daw po ako, standard operating procedure daw po.
Bakit ka natakas?
Exactly po. Ako po ang nag-document, nag-broadcast sa lahat ng mga tao, ako ang tatakas.
We require an explanation from your end, ha? PNP. General Macabinda, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roy. Thank you, General. Last follow-up to, yes, dun sa training na pinag-usapan natin kay General Carpenter kanina, pwede bang tumulong dyan yung CHR? Willing din ba pwede tumulong yung ibang advocates sa training ng National Police, beginning with the leadership ng WCPC, pero yung personnel ng ating National Police, kung paano dapat mag-address ng situations ng SOGI-based discrimination sa tamang paraan. Could we hear from the CHR? Yes, Mr. Kayabia.
Madam Chair, the Commission on Human Rights has always been conducting trainings on gender and sexuality and SOGI 101. Internally, Madam Chair, we've been conducting trainings on SOGI 101 for investigators and gender-focused persons. Also, the CHR has always been invited by the PNP and other government agencies in conducting gender development related activities.
Thank you. And the, yes, Ms. Nikki.
Actually po ma'am, partner po kasi ako ng Labor Rights Philippines and some years ago, I think it was 2013 to 2014, nag-engage kami specifically sa PNP Women and Children's Protection Desk all over the Philippines po bale sa Visayas, dito sa Metro Manila, nag-lecture din kami with them with the intention of helping them create a module so that they can institutionalize SOGI sensitive trainings sa kanilang mga tauhan. Ako po mismo, umupo po ako dun sa kanilang workshop ng paggawa ng kanilang modules. Actually po, sa pagkakaalam ko po, nung panahon po na yun, meron pong na-develop na SOGI module para po sa women's desk sa mga kapulisan po natin. So, kaya lang po, ang tagal na po nyo, no, mga 5 years ago pa po siya. So, kaya lang din po, nagtataka lang din kami. Sa aking palagi po, hindi naman din nagkulang yung CSO sa pag-engage sa PNP tungkol sa isyong ito. Pero hanggang ngayon po, ayun po, nangyari pa rin kay Gretchen at sa mga marami pa pong ibang tao. Pero, yun pa man, kahit na 5 years ago pa po yun, I think I safely speak for every advocate here na everybody is willing to help naman the PNP and all of the other government agencies to help them institutionalize and streamline SOGI-sensitive trainings across their offices para lang din po, tulong-tulong lang din po tayo para equality for all, so maprotektahan din po ang lahat.
Thank you, Ms. Nikki. So, let's do it again. Advocate, CHR, PNP. Okay, and then if kung willing lahat, my office and this committee will follow up. Great, that's one thing we'll be looking forward. Batch 3 na po tayo sa ating government agencies, beginning with the justice sector, sa DOJ, and then kung may dadagdag ang CHR. So, first, Attorney Lorena Calo for the Department of Justice.
At the outset, we would like to reiterate the previous position of the department as regards the anti-discrimination bill that was filed by Senator Rivera's conference. The department interposes no objection to the enactment of the proposed legislation, which aims to prohibit a wide range of discriminatory practices. The intention of the proposed measures to uphold the principle of non-discrimination resonates well with the clear policy of the state to value the dignity of every person and guarantee respect for human rights. We would also like to manifest that we will be submitting our particular comments on the specific provisions of the bill, of the two bills, and the additional bill which was only given to me in our position paper and in the
Thank you, Attorney Lord. Mr. Cayabia, meron ba kayong gusto idagdag mula sa CHR?
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the Commission on Human Rights will support Senate Bill 159412. The Commission believes, Madam Chair, that discrimination demeans the dignity and human rights of every person. As Gender Employment Ombuds, Madam Chair, under Magna Carta of Women, we have developed our gender guidelines to address cases and complaints of persons with diversity.
Thank you also, Mr. Cayabia. I really look forward to the day kapag naipasa na namin yung social equality law na the gender ombud of CHR or other gender ombuds of other government agencies ay magagabayan. Pareho ng Magna Carta of Women as the social equality law. So thank you. And moving to our health sector, before coming full circle back to academia, sa health sector, pakinggan po natin yung ating resource persons. First from PhilHealth, ating Senior Vice President, Nerissa Santiago.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning to our honorable senators. We have drafted, this is in behalf of the Department of Health and Local Health. We have drafted a position paper and we fully support the Senate bills that are being filed in this house. So, just to cite some of the provisions that was stated in the position paper, according to the WHO, globally, outcomes of the LGBTQ plus community members experience poorer results in terms of health outcomes because of exclusion, barriers, and social stigma. As part of the strategic Formula One Plus for health, it is anchored to build a healthcare system that is people-centered. So we really want to seek we are supporting these bills, which aims to protect the fundamental rights of individuals against any form of discrimination. I think as was mentioned in the Senate bill filed by Madam Chair, that there is the homosexuals are forbidden to donate blood. I think there is no specific law, and the department has not issued any memorandum that prohibits homosexuals to donate their blood. There is actually a manual on blood donor selection and counseling that was issued by the department's National Voluntary Blood Service Program, which is a useful guide to aid the health providers and advocates in applying the standards essential to the selection and screening of potential blood donors. So, hindi po totoo na pwede mag-donate ng blood. As long as you refrain from practicing misleading sexual behavior. Okay, in support of this bill, we have that there are some proposals to eliminate all forms of discrimination, one of which is the integration of the GAD to health programs, which is to be continued, and also a creation of an agency-based redress mechanism for SOGI, which may be integrated into the existing Committee on Decorum and Investigation within the department. Also, the department respectively recommends to include an item name in its recruitment forms to identify the gender identity. And this will, the department can appropriately address the person which the service is being rendered to. So I think that's the gist of the position paper of both DOH and FERA. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Denisa. And last but not the least, for government agencies, Dr. Mojica. Dr. Rita Mojica.
Hello, good afternoon po. I'm Dr. Brenda Mojica. I'm a clinical associate professor at the Division of Dermatology, and my specialization is on sexually transmitted infections and LGBTL. So, I'm a gay man. I was born with a penis. I identify myself as a man, and my gender expression is mostly masculine when I want to, but I can cross-dress. And I'm attracted to other men. So, ang gusto ko lang pong gawin ngayon po ay tayo pong lahat, imagine niyo yung time, kung may time po kayo na hindi po kayo pasok sa isang grupo or miyembro, ano po yung na-feel ninyo? Naramdaman niyo po ba na parang outcast kayo, nakakahiya, wala kayong ibang katuwang? Karamihan po sa atin, saglit lang yung feeling na yun kasi natutulungan tayo ng ating pamilya, ng ating mga kaibigan. Pero may mga tao po sa ating society na matagal silang nagdudusa dito sa feeling na outcast sila. Natatandaan niyo po ba yung istorya ng ugly duckling? Di ba? Napakagandang istorya po noon. Para mo siyang itlog na nakulog sa ibang nest. Tapos, lahat ng bibe, kulay dilaw, siya lang ay kulay itim. Ang feeling niya sa sarili niya, hindi siya maganda, hindi siya karapat-dapat mabuhay. At sa dulo ng storya, sabi niya, magpapakamatay na lang ako. Pupunta ako, lilipat ako doon sa lugar ng mga swan. Pag nakita nila kung gaano ko kapangit, papatayin nila ako. But bago mangyari yun, nakita niya yung sarili niya sa reflection ng ilog at nakita niya isa pala siyang swan. So parang ganun po ang SOGI. At ganun po ang nararamdaman ng maraming LGBT. At hindi lang LGBT, mga taong may iba-ibang disabilities o different abilities. No? So, bakit po importante maintindihan po natin ang SOGI? Kasi po lahat po tayo ay may SOGI, hindi lang po ang mga bakla at tomboy. Lahat. Because sexuality is an integral aspect of every individual. Hindi po natin yun kahit kailanman maaalis sa ating pagkatao dahil tayo ay tao. Ngayon, bakit po, Senator Pimentel, tinatanong po kung kailangan pa po natin itong SOGI bill? From a health perspective, kailangan po. Bakit po? Kasi itong maraming mga, di ba sabi ko po, sandali lang yung iba, yung feeling nila ng pagiging outcast. Pero yung iba, dahil ang tagal-tagal nila na feeling nila wala nagmamahal sa kanila, different sila, abnormal sila, then they develop maladaptive behaviors. Magsa-start na po ng chronic smoking, chronic alcoholism, pwedeng hypersexuality. Bakit naman hypersexuality? Kasi in the search for love and acceptance, some people might mistake sex as love. So this results to hypersexuality. And when people do sexual act with different individuals, they want to sustain that feeling that they are loved and accepted. Ngayon, pag wala ng sexual partner, ay hindi na naman ako loved and accepted. So, hanap ulit. So, makikita po natin, may relasyon din po ito sa lumalaganap ng HIV epidemic in the Philippines. Kasi ang mga taong naghahanap ng pagmamahal ay karaniwan dito sila pumupunta. Hypersexuality, masasabi niyo po na pwede rin po mag-lead to use of substance use. Pwedeng drugs na pinoproblema rin po natin ngayon sa ating community. So, Aside from HIV, ang health impact po ng pagkakaintindi ng SOGI ay hindi lang HIV. Pwede rin po nito maibsan o mabigyan ng lunas ang mga problema natin katulad ng teen pregnancy, maternal and child death, mental health disorders, and yung war on drugs. So magkakadikit po ito. Hindi po natin pwedeng sabihin na yung SOGI ay problema lang ng bakla o ng tokoy. Ang SOGI ay dapat maintindihan ng lahat ng mga tao. At the same time, meron din po itong effect sa negosyo. Bakit? Kasi po, ang mga kumpanya na merong polisiya for diversity and inclusion, yung mga tao po nila ay masaya sa kumpanya nila. They are more productive and they are loyal to their companies. Di ba po, gusto po natin masaya ang ating mga empleyado para maganda yung kita. At the same time, again, on a health perspective, marami pong mga tao, especially LGBT people, ang hindi po komportable na pumunta sa ating mga health facilities. Problema po ito sa field ng HIV sapagkat marami pong mga MSM o males who have sex with males na hindi naman po sila bading. Ibig sabihin, lalaki po sila, meron po silang penis o tite, pwede po yung sabi sa TV, pero nakikipagtali po sila sa kapwa lalaki. Hindi po automatic na gusto nila yung kapwa lalaki nila. Maaari pong sex work po yun. Dahil mahirap po sila, kailangan nila mag-sex work para may pantustos sa kanilang mga anak. Ngayon, marami sa kanila ayaw magpa-HIV test sapagkat ayaw kong malabel as LGBT, ayaw kong malabel as abnormal or immoral. So, imbis na libre na nga po yung HIV testing natin, malakas po yung mga NGOs natin na nagsasabi na punta kayo sa amin, ayaw pa rin nilang pumunta kasi nandoon yung stigma and discrimination. So, having said this, kailangan po talaga itong SOGI bill. Kasi pag napasa po itong SOGI bill, mabibigyan daan po na makompel ang ating academic institutions, ang ating medical institutions, and all government institutions to understand what SOGI is. Lahat po ng problema natin na nakikita ngayon ay dahil we are not on the same page. Iba-iba po tayo ng definition. Ngayon, pag napasa yung SOGI bill, isa lang ang ibig sabihin ng female, isa lang ang ibig sabihin ng woman. Lahat tayo pare-pareho on that page. So, mapapawasan natin yung pag-aaway-away at magiging happy Filipino citizens po tayo lahat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wiglao. And salamat sa lahat din ng mga government agencies na nagsalita ngayong umaga, ngayong araw, na nagbigay ng unanimous support sa SOGI Equality Bills. Gusto kong gawing off-record yan. The government agencies all invited here today expressed support for the bill. At umaasa ako na kami din dito sa Senado o ang majority namin dito can equal that, can not disappoint what the executive agencies have evidence today, pero kami bilang legislature ay suklian din ng pantay na pagsuporta. For our last resource person, before I go again to Ms. Gretchen, will come full circle sa ating academe. Again, from Mix James of the UP Center for Women and Gender Studies, yung any additional comments po that you may have, particular sa ating SOGI one.
Thank you, Senator Risa. So today we've heard from LGBTQI advocates and allies, as well as from our government offices, that there are gaps in the current Philippine law to address systemic discrimination and violence towards people of diverse sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sex characteristics, or SOGIES, in our schools, our workplaces, and in our public spaces. Sex, gender, and sexuality are complex and complicated, and like what Senator Risa said earlier, it's not just black and white. There are many shades of gray. And even if everyone has SOGIES, not everyone is lucky enough to be given or to have SOGIES individuals. There's a statement online at non-binary.org that is signed by more than 2,500 scientists around the world, including biologists, geneticists, Nobel laureates around the world, that says it would not be ethical to use science, to use biology, to use sex characteristics to negate people's gender identity. Sex is a spectrum spectrum the same way that gender is a spectrum. There is no one way to be a woman, a man, or a person. And this diversity in SOGIEC is what the SOGI Equality Bill seeks to recognize. That, and in the light of the issue of the lack of trans-inclusive toilet access and the unjust treatment towards Ms. Gretchen Diaz, the trans women are women, and transgender people need to be in peace and live a life without the fear of discrimination, harassment, and violence. I know that not everyone has access to SOGIES education. However, ignorance about sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics is not an excuse for anyone. It's not an excuse for all of us to treat fellow Filipinos with disrespect. Thank you.
Amen. Ms. James, maraming salamat po. At this point, kumustahin ko lang ang aking fellow Ms. Kumusta ka na ba, Ms. Gretchen? And ano rin ang tingin mo na itong diskriminasyon ay ginawa sa iyo sa isang syudad ba na actually mayroon na care ordinance?
Halo-halo pong emosyon ang nararamdaman ko. Una po sa lahat, nagpapasalamat po ako na maraming mga tao ang dumitinig at tinatalakay yung mga itong issue. Hindi po katulad na nangyayari sa mga ibang katulad ko na transgender o miyembro ng LGBTQ community na walang boses na hindi natatalakay yung mga paglabag sa kanilang karapatan. Katulad na lamang po ng aking kapatid na si Roy, kung saan 3 taon na hinihintay niya ang hostisya pero pakiramdam niya walang nakikinig sa kanya to the point na mag-iisip siyang kitilin yung sarili ng buhay. I think that what happened to me, the exact narrative and the video that I posted online is an exact representation of how we are being viewed in society. Someone who just want to go with her everyday life, then all of a sudden being deprived of access to a certain establishment. Then even if she's the one being deprived, she's the one being arrested. After being arrested, she's asking questions. Just like every one of us, we've been asking questions. What did I do wrong to deserve this? And multiple times we've been asking them, but no one answers. Because I believe that no one really knows what we did wrong in society for us to be judged this way. And not as much as it is hurtful to be judged, it is much hurtful to be assaulted physically, which is happening every day. We just keep silent, being subject to public ridicule, being harassed, and being a victim of victim blaming. Na kami na yung biktima, kami pa yung masama, dahil lamang po sa aming kasarian. Dahil naiiba kami, hindi namin kayo naiintindihan, kaya pagpasensyahan niyo kami. The case of me being deprived of entering a certain establishment is just the tip of the iceberg. And now that we are on a Senate hearing, we noticed that there are many spectrum of gender. Thus, there are many spectrum. There's a wide variety of violence against us, which demands a particular law to be passed. I think that many people see this movement as equality. Okay, so they're fighting for their freedom. Yes, we're indeed fighting for freedom for all, but at the same time, the meaning of equality is not just enjoying privileges or freedom for everyone, but it is also taking accountability and responsibility for the freedom of others. We're not trying to oppress the rights of real women. We're not trying to oppress the right for expression of different people, because we are also people and we know how it feels to be oppressed. That is not what we're fighting for. What we're fighting for is just equality. And I am so lucky and fortunate that I am given a chance to become the face of this movement. That my voice finally is heard. 2 decades of waiting, 2 decades of staying in the shadow of despair, of depression, and right now we're finally seeing the light. But slowly, I am being subject to ridicule and bad, desperate public opinion trying to destroy my personality, trying to blame me for what happened to me. And that's what is happening to anyone who is in this situation. And I think it is my duty, it is my responsibility to the LGBTQ plus community that no matter how difficult it is for me facing these people, to stand for what is right. Because we will never be silent, not right now. And I'm appealing to the members of the LGBTQ plus community, speak up now. Please let me know that I'm not alone. That now more than ever, I need you to be with me, to fight for our right. Maaari po tayong magmahal ng isang hayop, ng isang aso or pusa, without needing to become an animal to understand their rights. Pero bakit po kami ng kapwa-tao, hindi kami magawang yakapin at tanggapin at intindihin ng lipunan? Hindi po kami mga hayop, at lalong hindi kami hayop para sipain lang at mananahimik na, dahil matagal na po kami nananahimik. We will stop barking like dogs because we are not dogs. But we will say yes to equality and yes to Sochi Equality Bill. Thank you.
Thank you to Gretchen at mabuhay ka. I think everyone around the table, everyone in the room, lahat ng or at least karamihan ng nakikinig sa atin sa Facebook Live ay nakikisa sa iyo. First of all, the LGBTIQA+ community who mobilized around you. Kami, mga allies nyo, at palagay ko mas marami pang mga kababayan natin. So, let's see this through. Maraming salamat sa iyo. Unless there are other comments or questions from the advocates and other resource leaders, my fellow
Madam Chair,
senators, please.
Is it correct to say that the essence of the Sochi bills would be anti-discrimination?
Exactly, anti-discrimination and pro-equality.
Okay, but I don't think the case of Gretchen regarding the use of CR is a good example for a good incident to promote this bill, because if you conduct a survey among people, people will be divided. Believe me, kasi I conducted informal surveys. Ito there would be discrimination if Gretchen had not been allowed to use any CR. But was Gretchen allowed to use the male CR? Answer is yes, di ba? Which ayaw niya. O nga, kaya balancing of interest ngayon. Ngayon, paano ngayon yung sa female CR? Kasi ang sign pa doon, female pa eh. Female eh. I mean, ang interpretation doon is biological female. Yun ang gusto niya gamitin CR. And yet, meron namang umaangal naman na female. So, balancing of interest ng society. So, discrimination yun, kung never siya makagamit ng CR. And I have a picture sa farmers market. There is, Gretchen, why didn't you not use the third? Meron third CR na may symbol ng male, female.
Can I answer for the question?
Yes, please.
Yes, Ms. Gretchen.
Ms. Chair, first of all, I would not use a PWD washroom because me being a transgender woman is not a sign of disability.
Gretchen, these symbols are male, female, and the wheelchair. Why focus on the wheelchair? Ano na lahat eh?
Mr. Dear Senator, it is captured on recording that there is no signage like that during the incident. That only was replaced right after the incident, which is a clear misinformation to the public.
My dear colleague, I would just like to assert the not custody, but the embrace that the committee would like to extend to Ms. Gretchen after the experience of discrimination, the experience of violence, and the committee would like to recognize the validity of her story, which in fact, sa nakikita natin, yes, she chose to use the bathroom that coincides with her own gender identity and expression. kung titimbangin natin sa lawak at sa tindi na overwhelmingly positive na na-generate sa ating publiko within the community itself and plus tayo, kami mga allies, I think for now, for today, let us let that story stand with all its integrity. For those of us who really are inspired by this story of Gretchen and how you have responded to discrimination and the violence that you suffered, kasi talaga nararamdaman natin na it has given another shot in the arm, another fresh wind sa matagal ng laban, no? At least 2 dekada na. And certainly we will continue to interpellate and possibly amend the bill on the floor.
Madam Chair, I will come to the defense of Gretchen in the case of the violence really inflicted upon her. Kasi, Gretchen, correct me if I'm wrong, no? Itong guess ko that what you were doing before you were handcuffed, you were taking a video. Tama?
Yes,
correct. So, yan ang question ko ngayon sa kay Police Brigadier General. Ano ang tingin ng police sa ganyang action ngayon na binibidyotape ang ating mga kapulisan o ano? Is that misbehavior? Yan ang i-review ngayon ninyo. Kasi just as she said earlier, this can happen to anybody, hindi lang po sa LGBT community. Kasi yan yung bagong trend ngayon. Sige. Sorry, Madam Chair. So, thank you very much.
Thank you kay Senator Coco. Pasensya na kumakasama. General, pakinote na lang yung tanong ni Senator. Please do get back to the committee on the question. Kaya lang po, yung bisita pong 1:30 ay nasa opisina na po. So let's do justice to the hearing so far kasi ito yung isang napakayamang baon natin na dadalhin natin sa plenary debates. Therefore, at this point, I would like to manifest that we are adopting the proceedings of the 17th Congress on the SOGI Equality Bill. And then by way of a brief closing statement, yes, as many have repeatedly said, it's been 20 years, isang henerasyon na sa lahat ng mga nagsasabi na walang nangyayaring diskriminasyon sa Filipino LGBTIQA+. Masyado nang maraming mga barikada, Roy Galpo, Deg Dauban, at Gretchen, yes, et al. And it's my commitment as chair of the Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality to champion this bill until it becomes a law. It's my commitment as your ally to be with you, and there are other allies here in the Senate, hand in hand in this fight to stop stigma and discrimination. In your fight for equality, rest assured, dahil ang sinabi mo, Gretchen, pwede natin sabihin